what their final form would eventually be. And on the side of Sentinels, even though they did have their 5-man roster, they were very low on practice. Hambach had just gotten there, and as I learned by listening to the Sentinels podcast, Hambach hadn't scrimmed in a year because he was the 6th man in the LCK and wasn't scrimming for that long period of time. So he's getting some of the rust off, and I'd see both these teams are at their strongest level right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's going to be exciting to see, how Hambach can work with Dark Wings. I think individually, Hambach has had some really great moments. Usually when things fall flat is where you can see, okay, there's some communication barriers here. Dark Wings and Hambach aren't always on the same page. And Huhi had told us in an interview that it was kind of 4 people speaking Korean and then Dark Wings, speaking English, so that they were trying to move the team more towards communicating in English so that Dark Wings could be more involved. So I think as that continues and as that improves, Dark Wings will be more involved, and I think we'll see that mid-jungle duo look more coordinated.
I think so, but that's a long process. That's not something that's going to get fixed week over week. Interesting development and pick bans here. So with the Azir ban, it's not possible to have the Orianna-Azir trade, but at least it's possible to disrupt the Orianna Nocturne combo, and it would set up Calmy to play something like Aurora or Akali to match into the Orianna, which I think we'll see on the 3rd pick.
Yeah, exactly. Akali was the one that I was kind of thinking of. When you go Nocturne, you do want to have those dive buddies, obviously, to fly in with them. Mbessa going to be locked in, so Mbessa we're expecting to be up there for Castle. Hambach could go for the Pantheon, point and click. Obviously, decent ball delivery system, but Knockwave is kind of that prime one, and that is a big reason why we saw that taken away. Nico support also really rises, I think, in priority when you do have that Nocturne. It's also really strong in the 2v2, but when you can turn off the lights, it's so hard to mark these flanks. So I do think Sentinels may want to take away the Nico. It's a good pick for Huhi, and you just can't really give that over to Lions. Otherwise, you're probably having a losing 2v2 bot, and you're going to have to deal with it in the 5v5.
Absolutely agreed, but we do see the Akali as we expected there. It's likely that Aatrox isn't a jungle Aatrox, although it could be, but I would imagine that Impact has taken that to match into the Ambessa, which is what Castle's going to be taking the top lane.
So just waiting now for these next set of bans.
Yeah, nothing too surprising in the first 3 picks. We definitely have, from a personality perspective, we have a dive comp for DSG. All 3 of the champions go in, which makes me think they're going to want to try and put Rahel on something that's not very safe. Yeah. So sometimes you'd see like a Xayah or an Ezreal ban, but another thing we need to point out is that Kai'Sa is just really good for both of these 80 carries, so I'm expecting a pretty high priority on that pick as well.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Sejed just grabs it here if it's not going to be banned out, because they obviously, are having such a high priority on that. Rahel also does really like that pick. And it can be quite safe. The Varus going to be banned away. The Kai'Sa going to be taken away. I do think Ezreal makes sense as a ban. Nico Ezreal, pretty strong lane here. Could kind of disrupt that. Xayah obviously is one of those premier safe 80 carries, as you had mentioned. But I think it is a worse pairing with the Nico. So I would expect DSG to try to ban the Ezreal or maybe take it away. Unless they're really just not concerned. But I just think Ezreal is so good at disrupting some of this dive and making their job a lot harder.
Completely agree. The Kai'Sa ban made a lot of sense. They instead ban Yunara, which, again, I agree with you about the value of Ezreal into something like Akali, Ambessa, Nocturne. Sentinels would want to take that, but it makes me think that either DSG doesn't care or they're just going to pick it on 4.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're going to pick yourselves, then, hey, maybe that's not an issue. Yunara obviously has some safety, with the RE, is a relatively large dash, but still can be pretty vulnerable, and we know that there's not going to be like an Enchanter pairing alongside it, so I personally am a little bit surprised that they are worried about Yunara when they do have such an incredible comp for killing Yunara, but we will see. Traditionally with these kind of comps, you would expect it to be, hard engaged support, to be paired with this, things like the Nautilus, things like the Alistar and the Rel and the Rakan and so on. But we're going to have to see what they want to draft for. Ezreal would make a lot of sense. If you weren't going to ban it away, I think picking it away makes a lot of sense to deny that, because that just feels like the obvious choice alongside the Nico.
For sure. And it does seem like these teams are already very familiar with each other, from the Kai'Sa ban to even the Nami ban there by Sentinels to try and block the early Lucian Nami. and now Ezreal to try and make the safe AD carries that Sentinels could pick, harder to access, so Jhin would be the natural choice. Xayah maybe, but since you're already pairing it with the Nico rather than Rakan, I think Jhin is going to be what they end up locking in.
Yeah, and I mean, Jhin is a strong laner. You can obviously teamfight from pretty far away just by using the ultimate, but not great at staying safe from this dive. But I think the thought process is kind of like you can kind of start off the fights with your ultimate, try to be the ones proactively engaging, and if the Jhin dies, the Jhin dies. You still have a lot of power in the rest of the team. They do have some pretty consistent damage. If the Sion comes through, it would make it a jungle Aatrox here from Hanbok, which would be fun to see.
I'd love to see that. I do really feel like, awesome, we're going to see jungle Aatrox from Hanbok. The players that have played the jungle Aatrox and Ambessa, I feel like have been very successful. Early on in the year, it's the more rookie junglers across the world that I feel like have picked these champions the most, because it's a little bit more of a solo queue style where you do need to prioritize your own income more. But I think it's very powerful. So it rounds out the composition very nicely there with the Sion. The Karma comes through on the side of Ezreal Karma to try and make sure they have that bot lane prio to play around Drakes, which has been the MO for both of these teams when they found success. So I like the switcheroo there to get the Aatrox jungle because I think it's a strong pick, but I really like what DSG has put together in this draft.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, Aatrox obviously is quite popular in solo queue, and people do think pretty highly of it, but it hasn't done too well in competitive just yet in top 4 regions.
Not a great win rate.
Has a 33% win rate, so it hasn't been super successful, but is one of these picks that really can snowball. And I do think it's a good pick into what we have seen drafted from DSG, because you have access to always being hitting these 3 melee champions, and you're kind of expecting, all right, they're going to full send it on our Jhin, and then you want champions with a lot of power in the counter engage. You have the Orianna throwing out the shockwave. You're trying to fight through this Aatrox, because it's allowing the Aatrox to get so much damage down. So I think from that kind of point of view, it makes a lot of sense as a pick, right? Even if the Jhin dies, if you have high consistent damage, from your mid lane, from your jungle, things could still be okay.
Absolutely. Impact with another Sion performance also means that it's going to hurt the champion pool later, as we're going to be in our first best of 5 Fearless here in the LCS, so we could see some exciting stuff later on. I do hear that they're going to be remaking Champ Select for some reason. We're not sure what the bug is. Did Impact take Guardian again?
No, he did not take Guardian. I have a funny story about that, though. So one of the observers didn't get into the game, so they have to restart so the observer can get into the game. So we are going to restart that really quickly and then launch. But earlier, the players were reacting to the Valentine's lighting. Let's check it out. So
Valentine!
Oh, there's even hearts in the background. Oh, I love that. They're throwing hearts across the way to each other. I just like how surprised Impact looked. Yeah. But I have a funny story, because I played an ARAM yesterday with Impact and some other people, and obviously everyone is kind of memeing about the Impact Guardian, right? The Guardian Aatrox. And so I accidentally queued for a regular ARAM instead of Mayram. Oh, no. So no one set their runes. So he's playing Yunara, and he zones in not with Guardian, but with Grasp. And so immediately, like, everyone on our team is just spamming the Grasp Yunara that Impact is playing. So my bad. I'll take the L on that one, but it was really, really funny.
I'm surprised you guys even got a game. I feel like everyone plays Mayhem instead of classic ARAM.
I know, yeah. It was an insta-queue, too, which was surprising. But it was pretty funny.
Man, that's amazing.
Yeah. Impact's been getting memed a bit on that, but they won the series, so obviously he's kind of having fun with it.
He absolutely is. They talked about it on their podcast as well. He's pretty sure it was his bad. He blamed the mouse, though. He said it's a double-click issue with certain Logitech mice. He was clicking it and scrolled. The second click happened, and that's why he feels like it hit Guardian. I feel like at that point you should just switch mice.
Yeah, probably have to switch mice.
Yeah, I think it's time.
You know what's interesting, though, is for a lot of the old school pros, they have the same mouse that they've used for like their whole career, and some of these guys never want to switch mice. It's really funny, because I know a number of pros from different games over the years where they get so hooked on a specific mouse, and then the mouse gets discontinued. So I knew some pros who were spending upwards of like thousands of dollars basically on going online because the mouse gets discontinued. So they go to eBay and they try to buy every copy of this mouse that exists so that they can have a stockpile. And one of the guys I knew who was a former pro in StarCraft ended up buying, like, he had a closet full of like 80 of this mouse.
I mean,
after it got
that's too
disconnected.
many.
I know.
That's too many,
I know,
man.
but it was just so funny because his whole closet is just full of this specific mouse that has been discontinued because he was so worried about, well, what if they all break?
Yeah, my goodness. Honestly, I wish I would have done that. The mouse and mouse pad that I was playing with when I was pro have both been discontinued, and I don't have backups. So maybe that's why I'm washed. I think it's probably just
it's a mouse issue.
It has nothing to do with not playing as much as I used to.
No, no. You're not old and bad. You just have the wrong mouse.
Correct. R.I.P. the MX Revolution wireless mouse.
Hashtag sponsored. There you go.
It's really not. It's discontinued. You can't buy it anymore.
Well,
there's no sponsorship here.
We are paused briefly. Hopefully not going to be any issues as the players are loading into game, but hopefully we can get this one kicked off here pretty quickly. If you are just joining us, this is week 1 of the LCS Lock In playoffs. We are only best of 5s from here on out for the rest of Lock In. The teams that win here, there's actually some pretty big stakes. If you're in the upper bracket and you win, it means you at least qualify for the America's Cup, you know, because you are going to be top 3. And then America's Cup is going to be the 2nd and 3rd seed from the LCS versus the 2nd and 3rd seed from the CB LOL. Of course, the first place seed will go on to first stand and compete against the LPL, the LCK, the LEC, and so on and so forth. But, you know, even just a win here is actually pretty important, especially for a lot of these players that have never had that opportunity for that international experience. And you're also going to be afforded the opportunity to have potential scrims against some of the very best teams in the world because you're going to be there during first stand.
For sure. And I was talking to Mark about this since we haven't talked that much about what the Americas tournament is going to entail. So since it is before first stand, I think mostly for that tournament, it's about the competition with the CB LOL teams. But the winner of that tournament for the end of Split 2 gets a 14-day boot camp in Korea before MSI, like during MSI. So the prize is actually future practice, if that makes sense. So if they qualify for MSI, obviously they get to go anyway. But let's say that DSG wins the America's Cup. That means while MSI is happening, Riot has an all-expensive paid boot camp for them to be able to scrim against the best teams in the world.
There you go. Or just to eat some really good KBBQ.
I don't think that would be the best use of the boot camp time, personally.
That's fair.
But it depends how much you like the vibes.
So one of the players had to run to the washroom, so they are back now. So that was that secondary delay. So we are ready to go. We are finally going to be getting underway here. I can see that they have unpaused, and everyone kind of just chatting back and forth. Call me saying, Akali again, are you scared? And Darkwings is like, we'll see. So a little bit of banter back and forth between the teams as we finally get things underway here. Sentinels versus DSG kicking it off.
I like the banter between Darkwings and Call Me. If we remember that last series, Darkwings, when they lost, did have several deaths in the side lane. So he's got to make sure to improve upon that if they want to have a chance in this series.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that is kind of the question. You know, even talking before the season started, some of the opposing teams' coaches were saying, you know, we're not so sure how Sentinels will do because a lot of people feel like in League of Legends, in competitive, you have to have an incredible mid laner to really have success. And people weren't sure how quickly Darkwings would be able to develop. You know, would he be able to really hit the ground running and establish himself as a top-level mid laner? Because if he can, then people feel like Sentinels could end up being one of those very top-level teams.
Yeah, I'd say he's had some really inconsistent performances. I'd say even last week, his Galio game was really strong, and that wouldn't even be something you'd think he'd be able to excel on. But Orianna would be absolutely in his wheelhouse for something you would expect him to be proficient at.
Yep. And these two teams, you know, did meet up a couple weeks ago. You touched on it. It was week 1 of the lock-in tournament, but it was a very close series. You know, the goal difference, as you can see, only plus 39 across the entire series. The close percentage, which is when we're within a certain amount of gold, a certain percentage of gold, was very high, meaning that this remained a very competitive series overall throughout those 3 games. Of course, DSG did end up winning, and that was with Kisno, as they are trading really heavily as Darkwings wants to get this wave in, and Call Me was getting some good damage down, but it's costing him a ton of CS as a result. He was so focused on that trading, he missed an entire wave out of the 2 waves that have come.
Yeah, and Darkwings had perfect vision on Kryra, seeing him clear the Raptors, knowing Nocturne isn't trying a cheese gank. I think that's part of why Darkwings is willing to play so aggressive, is it's against a Nocturne, so usually it's just a full clear, but he's going for it. That's a flash.
In, does connect on the E, but he can't even take it. Darkwings is too far back. I guess he's just hoping to like freeze the wave now, but I don't think he's going to be able to really hold it. There's not a lot of health on that cannon, so at the end of the day, he spends his flash for the E, and I thought he was going to full send it, but just didn't end up doing that, and now Darkwing should be able to TP back, and it's just going to be kind of like you're down a flash for not really much of anything.
Yeah, Darkwings can only buy the 1 mana crystal, but obviously TP's back. CS is kind of equalized because he did deny a couple with where he got the wave, but I'm going to take the flash over the 3 CS pretty much any day of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also just kind of a fun matchup because of what happened in the offseason, right? You know, DSG last year, you know, really struggled through the first couple of splits. In split 3, they started getting things going. They got Rahel, they got Darkwings, they started to win, and people started to get a little bit more excited about them. But then in the offseason, well, lo and behold, Sentinels come in. They end up taking away a lot of their players.
You made
What's
this?
yours?
No, I made this.
Is mine.
Darkwings, Rahel, Huhi. And it did seem like it was going to be really difficult for DSG to rebuild off of that, but they've done a very good job with the replacements that they found, Calmy, Sajed, and Lions. But it creates seemingly no hard feelings, right? The Valentine's Day, they're giving hearts at each other, they're bantering in all chat, as long as both teams actually found success, you know?
Yep. Yep, absolutely the case. And I mean, it's interesting, right? Because, you know, I was talking to Ido in the offseason, you know, and he was just saying he can't blame any players for wanting to join Sentinels because the relegation tournament was so stressful for them. You know, they found it really, really intense, really, really stressful. It's a lot of extra, you know, practice during the offseason. And then it can feel like, okay, if we lose this series, if we get relegated, because DSG is in the guest slot, they don't have a guaranteed spot. If they lose that, well, guess what? You might not have a job next year, right? So a lot of the players found that incredibly stressful. And so as a result, you know, he was saying, hey, we can't really blame these guys if they want to be on a team that knows they're going to be in the league next year.
And I'd also say, as a fan, this is the way that I'd want it to turn out. Like if the guest slot team or DSG ends up just being the team that's really good at finding young rookie talent, and then they get to display their skills, they're going to become fan favorites pretty much right away because it's been so long since we've been very excited about having like a surprise team in the LCS, because the way this ended up working is DSG kind of got last pick of the talent and they're performing towards the top of the league, which is got to feel very good for the org and for the players involved.
It really does, and it puts a huge onus on their scouting, right? You've got to be able to find the diamonds in the rough, the best players in Tier 2 to be able to bring up and really try to get them going immediately. It's also just kind of funny because DSG now looks really good, you know, and there's a world in which it's like DSG wins the split and then they have to go play the relegation tourney.
Yeah, I mean, you and me were talking about this. I forget what your prediction on the dive was. Was it DSG 3-2?
Yep.
That ended up being my prediction as well, but it just doesn't feel right yet. And part of it is just because we saw DSG losing so much last year, but based on the games that they've played, they've been very successful so far, and it does seem like a sound prediction. So we'll see what they can deliver today as we are nearing the 6-minute crab, and we have a mid lane / jungle fight.
Yeah, as Hambach going to be face-checking Kryra, will get feared up, and not going to be ran down or taken out, but it means he gets chunked pretty heavily, so should give Kryra the edge on this scuttle. I think Hambach's just going to have to give that up, especially with Castle moving over. Hambach just has to base. As Hui taking quite a bit of damage. There's a shift in there from Sajed, who is getting some damage down. Hui will survive, but again, a winning trade there for DSG. They win the skirmish round mid, they win that skirmish round bot as well, and they get access to the plants as there's an ult in from Castle. Impact's gonna get interrupted on his ulti, getting incredibly low flashes out. Castle will not be able to finish him off, but that is great for Castle because Impact now has no ult, no TP, so he can try to potentially crash this wave, deny some minions there from the Scion.
Yeah, very nice laning there by DSG. I feel like they were just very aware of the way the map was working. There's been so many battles around that second Scuttle Crab spawn, and I do believe it's very important. You see teams in the LCK doing this so much, but FlyQuest and C9 have been very vocal about how important that was. And Kryra was just set up there first, right? He had control ward in the line bush. pushes Hombach back, gets level 6, but then concurrently, since you have the level 6 Nocturne, Castle's able to go all in because he'll win the 2v2 with a Nocturne ult. And since all the junglers were top lane, their Ezreal Karma goes super aggressive and wins the trade. So just all collectively, they were very aware of the state of the overall map.
I mean, it was fantastic. And there was even one more knock-on effect when Impact has to go back to base. So then Kryra says, all right, I can invade. And he takes away his blue because he has level 6 to level 5 over Hombach. So they get the blue. They win skirmishes in all 3 lanes across the map. And DSG, utilizing that pressure. It is just a slight gold lead, though, of course. It did not result in a kill or anything like that. But still, it's nice to see DSG playing aggressive, realizing where they have that power, where they have those advantages, and trying to get the most out of it.
And that's a lot of the stuff that top teams are able to do, is they can get these small advantages, which will then ladder up when we end up seeing team fights. So the first team fight of this game is probably going to be around the first Drake, since that has been the primary win condition for both of these teams. Week 1, Sentinels wasn't very organized. Week 2, they took 8 Drakes in 2 games, got 2 souls, and won a 2-0. Last week against LYON, DSG got the first 7 Drakes of that series against LYON. When these teams are winning, it's because of their ability to control what has become the primary objective in League of Legends this season, which is the Drakes.
It's also pretty interesting. Darkwings is going to be going back to a very old school style build, which is the Roa. Almost exclusively, we have been seeing, the really bursty builds with Ludens, Shadow Flame, Deathcap, all of these upfront burst items. But because there's the Ambessa, the Nocturne, all of this, they're playing it pretty defensively. As Hombach trying to get in, DSG do have first move on this Dragon. I don't think there's going to be a contest. Yeah. So, Darkwings is going to be playing this much slower build. The Roa, a lot less burst, a lot longer to come online, but does give you that additional health and survivability.
It's a good call out and a really well taken Dragon by DSG right there, having the bot lane push, having the Nocturne ult threat. I think most importantly, having the inside track on mid lane as well. So if there's a fight, they'd be able to win. And also because Darkwings is going with this slower build, it also does make sense. He doesn't want to get one shot in the side waves, which was one of the dangers of picking a control mage into a Kali. So Sentinel's definitely slow playing this a little bit.
Yeah, and every time we look top lane, it's like, oh yeah, Castle's really bullying Impact. But then you look at the CS and you're like, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of just how Sion plays. Sentinels, though, first here on the Grubs.
This could be a fight. Castle wants to go
moving
in.
over. DSG gonna go for it. In comes the ulti, in onto the Nico, but the pop blossom pretty good. The fear does land. Nico's gonna get knocked down, but is that going to be enough? Flash away there from Lions on the side as Hombach trying to get something done. Big shockwave across 3, but not a lot of damage behind it. Sentinels just have no consistent DPS in this fight. It's Darkwings on, really just a catalyst. It's Nico getting focused down. Jhin is still in the bot lane, so the more high damage comp from DSG really wins out despite the great shockwave.
I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of this DSG team because they did all the small trades, and then when the fight happened, they also had just a slight numbers advantage. They were there a little bit sooner, and they attack the weakest target. So Kryra goes all in onto the support. Once the fear lands, that's when the Ambessa goes for the ultimate, so it's undodgeable there from the Nico. Even though 2 people get hit by the shockwave, like what else is there actually in the fight? No one ends up falling below a quarter health, and they completely wipe Sentinels off the floor in that fight.
Yeah, I can see Golden Glue looking pretty stressed by the results of that one. It's a much slower build, but this was DSG last year. So this was DSG last year without Rahel, without Darkwings, in the splits 1 and 2. They really struggled, 2-18. And so the reason this is important is because once they then lost those players coming into this year, people were thinking, oh, are they just going to go back to that sort of level of performance? But even losing Rahel and Darkwings, they're able to bring in Calmy, bring in Sajed, bring in Kryra, and have a lot of success. They're starting off pretty hot. They're looking really good this game. I think they just have a much stronger skirmishing comp, especially when Darkwings is going this slow scaling build. They don't have a lot of DPS in the early game, and if DSG can zero out one of their threats, well, you have no consistent damage.
And they're playing just a very, I'd want to say, controlled game. 2 full item completions now in top jungle. We're going to have ultimate up again for Kryra in about 8 seconds. So if this river tries to be contested, he's just going to R again and go in for another kill. He's an incredibly strong Nocturne right now. Not to mention he's going to have fully upgraded Smite after the Scuttle.
You can see Castle here looking for a bit of a proxy play, trying to be annoying to Impact, and is going to be able to clear that up as he hits level 10. Call Me just continuing to push, and the gold lead now almost up to 2K here for DSG, who wants to continue pushing the pace. They already did grab that first dragon, so expecting them to try to continue for that, as Hanbok has just been waiting in this side, is going to look for Lions, can't connect on the EQ, unfortunately. Lions just backs it up, had no flash, so if that connected, then the Infernal Chains could be there, and could have potentially been a look.
It could have been a look, but if we're thinking about how these compositions need to work, I'd say Sentinels is in a pretty difficult spot because the Aatrox is good when the Ambessa, Nocturne, Akali are trying to dive through them. The Aatrox is not good when he's trying to move into a Karma Ezreal. Like that gank has such a low chance of success. As Call Me just gets some nice poke onto the Orianna.
Send the ulties in. He flashes out, but doesn't get the distance. God. And now Hanbok's in trouble as well here. Good spell shield there from Kryra. As Call Me threatening, Hanbok is going to go back in. There's the R2 forward. Hanbok now pops the ulti. Who he's coming over, but Castle has arrived first. The pop blossom comes down, but it is too late. Rahel going to join the fight, but Who he's gone. Impact's in. Can Impact get a kill back? Looks like he might be able to finish off Call Me, but Call Me flashes away. Impact flashes to follow. Rahel getting some damage down. Castle could be in trouble. Kryra waiting around the edge. Nice follow-up there with the root. They get the shutdown. Now trying to flash out to safety, but he can't quite do it. Rahel in a lot of trouble. Kryra knocks him down. Lions has arrived, and Impact doesn't have the damage to finish them off. At the end of the day, DSG went out on the fight again.
And that was with Sajed not being involved. The Ezreal's collecting plates on the bottom lane that entire time. This is becoming an incredibly one-sided game. That was a extended 4v5. All 5 members of Sentinels participated, but it begins with just a nice little trade from Call Me. The Nocturne is close, and once enough poke lands, they just ult in. The flash doesn't clear the fear tether range, so it's a pretty easy kill for Kryra. And then why not just keep hitting back, since the Ambessa has the first move, lands the R onto Hanbok, finishes him up, and it's just because Sentinels isn't quite synced up. 3 people are dead by the time Impact arrives, so they salvage it a little bit, but it still becomes a disaster in the end.
Yeah, I mean, that's the power of having the push. DSG has been so quick on these moves. As long as they knock down one of the carries early, which they've been able to do every time, Sentinels just doesn't seem to have the damage, and that fear not breaking the tether hurts. Golden Glue definitely seeing the writing on the wall for this game as it's getting more and more out of hand. It was also worth noting, we'll see how many role quests are completed now. So finally, Hanbok completes his, but it was 5-2 role quest completions after that fight. So they did have that advantage.
It's so funny, the role quests seem like the completion time doesn't matter in 9 games out of 10, but in moments like that, it can actually have such a big impact. They're here on Drake number 2. Nocturne has level 11 and ultimate once again, so the river is, you just can't pass into the river, I feel like, because Kryra will kill you, so should be a pretty easy Drake. He's going for a steal though, desperation.
Yeah, can't quite get it away. You can see that Rahel was heading up towards top lane to maybe try to think about a play towards Castle. Castle, though, just constantly pushing that in. He is now 4-1 on the Ambessa. Has been very quick to move towards these plays, constantly having the push on Impact. We touched on it earlier where it's like the gold was basically even though Castle was winning the fights. But because DSG created action that Castle could use his tempo to fight at, it exploded that lead to something that actually feels like it matters now.
It really does. And then also when the Ambessa gets eclipsed, the matchup definitely changes with every champion. So he's perma-pushed right now. Really, they're just keeping pressure on all the lanes, and as long as Kryra's around when a skirmish happens, he's going to be ulting in. So he's just kind of walking around the map, collecting objectives right now. We need to see some miracle Who he engage, I feel like, to bring this game back into normalcy, or just kind of baiting Kryra into diving too deep, since he does have that extra bounty right now. But this has been a very impressive game to me from DSG. They've done all the little things right, and they've found good fights.
Completely agree. And there's finally the role quest completed there for Darkwing's Just This Minutes. He'd been sidelining for a long time and wasn't getting as much role quest completion as a result. DSG look like they're going to be able to grab this Herald uncontested.
Reset on him.
Yeah, it is going to leash, unfortunately, but doesn't fully leash anymore. So just pull it back into the pit and are going to be able to eventually finish that off, as they're set up really well in the side lanes. You know, Akali and Ambessa both really excel in the side lanes, and we'll see what they can get done. You can see that little second Jhin on the minimap down towards bot lane is Who he. So he's trying to see, is there any sort of a trailing play I can make? Can I at least create some safety for Darkwings? Because you do not want the Akali in a long lane against that Orianna feeling safe to look for all ins.
definitely not. But this is the perfect situation when you have a team comp that wants to flank into the back of fights with dive buddies galore for the Nocturne, Akali, or Ambessa flying in. These types of compositions don't work very well from behind, but they work exceptionally well from ahead. And it's looking like first turret is just a matter of time for Castle, as he's going to get a couple shots on it every single cannon wave that arrives. And Impact is, I mean, yes, he has teleport, but he doesn't have many other options in this lane.
Yeah, and even his TP's on cooldown. Had the ulti, though, which I assume is what you meant.
Oh,
just
right.
be able to ult back to lane.
The RollQuest thing actually trolled me there.
Yeah, it does trick you sometimes. But we'll see, as he's going to go for an ulti. But
got a minion to
Castle
help.
got out of the aggro of the tower, but in comes the Nico ultimate, trying to actually turn it around, but Castle just flashes out, using that public execution plus the flash. Wasn't even a flash, excuse me, just the public execution and a dash to be able to get it safety, so holds onto the flash. So Castle navigating that really, really well, even with Huhi on the roam. Stays safe, doesn't have to spend a summoner, just trades the ultis, and it's Huhi that actually uses his flash.
Yeah, and Darkwings teleports up to try and match. I mean, they're sending the farm at Castle, and he's still able to clear the wave pretty easily at half health. This also means that Calmy is going to be able to get solo turret gold himself, so both solo lanes and the jungle now with over 1,000 gold advantages. Sentinels trying to get a little bit back on this play. They do have a 3v2, but they're just, since they don't have good eyes on the Nocturne and Cryo would be in alt range, any type of dive would likely just lead to a bigger deficit.
I mean, Sentinels are just really struggling, I think, with lane assignments, right? Because once the Akali and the Ambessa both get ahead, there's not really anywhere safe for the Orianna to go. So Nico's kind of just walking around the map, trying to stay around Darkwing so he can actually be able to farm. They know they need to get him strong, but, well, that ends up being Kryra just power farming, you know, DSG being able to move around the map and kind of winning both sides. And even though they got Impact out of this matchup that was pretty tough, Castle just bases, goes right back down towards him. We'll see if Sentinels are going to try to swap again, because they would rather have the Akali laning against Impact here. You know, he shouldn't be able to burst down Impact. But Darkwings is going to struggle in either matchup.
Yeah, I mean, they burned their TP to get him top in the first lane, and DSG was just able to match it with the tempo they have, maintaining the teleport on the Akali. So, I mean, Azael, this is a stop.
Yeah.
Like, but it's happened from the little things snowballing into the big things. Even from the first level 6 spawn that we saw that Kryra was in position to capitalize on, to the way they found all the skirmishes. They've controlled all the important objectives. They got the Rift Herald as well as the 2 Drakes. They still haven't even expended that Rift Herald. They're probably waiting to see if the 3rd Drake is going to be contested whatsoever. But with this gold deficit, like, are you really going to be contesting this Chem Drake in 22 seconds? No. Probably not.
No, I think there's no shot. And I mean, I just think with their comp, they need multiple items on the Aurea and the Aatrox to really have much of a threat. And Kryra is just power farming.
Level edge.
Yeah, he's up 2 levels. And we'll see if he can win the smite. No, Hombach does get that, so Hombach does go to 12. That's something going right for them. But this is one of those games where sometimes you'll watch a game and people talk a lot about tempo and you're like, yeah, but they didn't get anything. Well, this is a game where they got everything, right?
Yeah.
They had pushing lanes across the map. Kryra used those really well. They forced skirmishes that they then moved quickly to and were able to create a very big lead as an advantage. It is now all of the outers gone. It's a 5K gold lead at 20 minutes here. And Sentinels are trying to slow down the bleeding, but Soul is up in a couple minutes here, and Sentinels are just going to have to settle for a scuttle on the top side and trade for that dragon.
Yeah. Jhin ult opens up for fun.
Opens up, closes down.
Yep. And game 2. That's where it's going. The biggest disappointment for me in DSG this game is the fact that I have Sajet on my fantasy team, and he's yet to have a killer assist. Everyone else is doing too much positive work that he's not cleaning up fights like he has in the past 2 weeks.
What are they doing?
What's happening here? Castle's actually been... What is this? Normally it's the top laner that's 0-0-0.
Sure, you're stomping the game, but what about Jat's fantasy team?
Sajed, please. Start creating some action.
Yeah, Castle into a little bit, so Sajet can get to some team fights before this is done.
Please. Don't get enough fantasy points for turret plates.
That's true. Yeah, gold leads don't give you really much of anything. But Call Me, he has 2 items completed. Castle's got 2 items completed. Kryra's got 2 items completed. Across the board, they are really online. Yeah. And when you look at the inventories of Castle, Kryra, and Call Me, and then you look at their counterparts, it's really sad. It is very, very hard for them to get anything done here, as Rahel will Ghostblade and Flash the wall to survive for now. But a nice bit of pressure there from DSG, and they're going to continue moving forward. Ezreal does chunk Rahel low, but much to Jat's dismay, no more fantasy points earned by that.
Still 0-0-0, man. Doesn't matter.
It's tough out here.
It doesn't matter. 3.5 minutes until Sentinels can also concede the soul. That just, it seems like we're just waiting until DSG secure the most like lopsided victory we've seen from DSG. This is technically game 3 against LYON was more lopsided of a win for DSG, but that's because LYON was trying desperation plays to get back in it. But this is kind of what League of Legends, as they might get Castle.
A nice little CC chain there as they use the point-blank ulti and the deadly flourish to lock up Castle. Castle flashing back. Can he get out? The Q's come back up, but he's flash rooted by Huhi. Is he going to turn around and get a kill? And of course he is in the 1v3. Takes one with him. And now in comes the Jet as well as Kryra. The TP going to arrive here from Call Me, but Sentinels have backed it up. It cost them the flash from Huhi, cost them a lot, and it was just a 1-for-1, but at least they got Castle.
I mean, they got Castle, and they didn't lose a ton of tempo because DSG was slowly moving to support him rather than trading up for turrets or tempo on the rest of the map. Like, that could have been a play where DSG could have just started Baron and potentially taken it. But the point I was making is this type of slow, methodical victory at 22 minutes where you're waiting for the soul is one of the most reliable ways to win League of Legends games now. With Baron only giving you half the gold reward that it used to, as well as being harder to kill, the reliable way of winning is going for Dragon Soul. So in this weird period where Otacon used to accelerate the game, I think we're going to see a lot of teams just kind of keeping the game in a holding pattern. They're going to get slightly more farm than you during this period. They're going to try not to give you bounties, and then they're going to take the soul before eventually going for Baron in the end.
And we can see this play one more time. It's just honestly really nice CC chain. The point blank ultimate into the deadly flourish buys time for that full Q smash from Impact. Then the flash forward for the root. Even with all of that CC chain happening, he still gets a 1v3. And he wasn't even trying to kill him until Nico flashed on him. He was just trying to run, but that is how fed Castle is.
Yeah.
And it's 1:30 until Soul here. Kryra also, these are the dream Nocturne games. When you're just power farming the whole time, and the only times you ever have to fight is with your ulti, it feels so nice. I mean, he has kept up basically with the Soul laners. He's actually ahead of Call Me on experience on the Nocturne jungle. And I think Sentinels probably will contest the Soul, because I know they're thinking it's pretty cooked. I mean, maybe they say, you know what, we just stay in our base and we wait for Elder and hope we get a flip. That's kind of the other option, but often, you know, in these kind of games, you see teams just kind of walk out, fight the Soul, get aced, and then the Baron goes and the game's kind of over.
I think the Soul is the correct time to do it. You see the Actualizer on Orianna to maybe give them a little bit more burst. Also, it's an Infinity Edge on Rahel, so that's another change to this season with the fact that 80 carries have such increased gold income. The game starts sooner, but Dragon still spawns at the same time, plus the 80 carry quest, plus the cashback. I'd say last year if a team is going for a 25-minute Soul, the team with low income would never have a 3 out of 80 carry here, but now they can actually fight, right? The 80 carries are equivalent in gold. If you land a good Actualizer ult on the Orianna, and if your Scion is taking the right space, it's absolutely their best chance they have to salvage this game.
Yep, and they are kind of first to the objective now. Kryra just coming out of base, doesn't have the full money for the GA, but did get his BF. Castle, though, has 3 completed items here. He is monstrously strong, and he is on the side. Has been spotted. In goes Kryra, and they're just looking for the Jhin. The ulti, though, misses. The Pop Blossom counter engage, not too bad. Rahel trying to survive, but he's not going to be able to do it. Darkwings has to flash out. He has no health. Castle falls. Call Me is low, but it's Impact. Hombach trying to make a stand here, trying to get something done. They just don't have the damage. Hombach flashes in, does got one. Darkwing still there behind Impact. At the end of the day, though, it is +1 for DSG, as well as a big health advantage and the jungler staying alive. And that should mean it's Soul for DSG.
It'll likely be Soul, but this was a well-played fight from Sentinels. You can see the ultimate ends up landing on side, and the fact that everyone grouped up this much really benefits Hombach's Aatrox. He's not that fed, but he ends up almost at full health from all of the Aatrox healing he gets in this very close fight. Ends up finishing Call Me at the very end of this. Nicely done before falling. Chemsoul does go over, though. Ends up being a little bit too little too late. But you could see Golden Glue thought, hey, maybe this is the time we clutch the game. They got a couple bounties out of it, not to mention this turret. So they're still barely involved in the game.
Darkwings did stay up to grab that tower. Castle, though, hunting for him. It looks like he's actually able to walk out. I mean, that was a really good fight from Sentinels. If the gold is closer, they look really good in that fight.
It could be team comp diff, right?
Totally. I feel like Rahel actually played it quite well. The backstep to actually avoid the ult from Castle, otherwise he insta-dies, forced them to spend a lot more to actually finish off that Jhin, allowed him to get a little bit of damage out with that IE before he goes down. And Sentinels fought valiantly there, but the gold lead remains 5K, and now Jhin gonna get spotted out, has the flash, has to use it. As soon as that came back up, it is just gone again. And that is Kryra, level 16, has the GA completed and a much shorter ultimate cooldown now with the rank 3.
Yeah, really good ward there at Raptor Pit. Rahel was just trying to play safe, keep up farm. I was going to say the only advantage they have now is that Rahel's flashes back up. And Kryra says, not anymore. Getting rid of that, and immediately starts up the Baron.
Yep, starting up the Baron here, trying to force a fight. Kryra won't have his ulti, but we'll see if they can even get over to contest the Jed and Lions, trying to keep them away, as DSG will have to pull off. It would take them a long time to two-man that Baron. That is not an Azir or a Kai'Sa or anything like that, but meanwhile, Calmy is just pushing bot side, and no one was answering, so does get some more plates off that before Impact can get down and collect that wave.
Really curious how DSG will play out the rest of this game. Currently, they're sitting in a 1-3-1. Another
fight here. Humbug could be in some trouble. The Fear Tether is there. Castle ult over the wall. Shockwave does not get much done. Lions comes in, and they're going to lock down Humbug, who has no flash. Humbug fighting valiantly, will fall to Castle. It's another kill from DSG. They have no hesitation on this, as almost Calmy falls on the bot side to Impact, who narrowly does not take him down. The Seekers was not used, and Calmy survives, and they're going to go right back to the Baron now. There's no jungler here. Sentinels will spot it out. They have no choice but to contest.
Yeah, Akali's going to be able to teleport in. They might look for a flank engage from the Akali, but they have no ultimates other than Ezreal, so I think it's a little dangerous.
Yeah, who might play to finish. Trying to look for an ulti. They're getting it low. Will they be able to finish it off? Pop Blossom across multiple members. So Jet goes out. They secure the Baron. Impact and Huhi in the middle of the pit. They're going to start falling here. Darkwings and Rahel trying to get some damage down, but they're being threatened on the side. And now Impact is just getting focused down by everyone. Flashes over the wall, tries to get out. Kryra going to ult into the backline. He's in onto Rahel. Rahel is feared up. Kryra can't quite finish him off. Now going to get shockwaved away. Rahel's still alive. Finally falls. Kryra doesn't even lose his GA as he heals back up with the passive auto. DSG crushing through this game, looking to be completely in form here for the lock-in playoffs.
Looking really good. I'd say Chemsoul did a lot of work in that fight as they were sitting at low health, but just a very strong sequence of play. They kill the Aatrox, and they say, you know what? We're just going to take whatever damage you throw at us, make sure we secure the Baron, and then we'll fight in the later 5v4, knowing that we have GAs and stopwatches and the Chemsoul, and they're just very confident in taking the extended fight. The same ultimate that they used to get the Aatrox dead immediately comes off cooldown, probably for a 1/10 of a second before Kryra uses it again. As you mentioned, doesn't even lose his GA. Absolutely crazy. Triumph procs coming in at just the right time, likely making this game out of reach.
Yep, and you can see the look on Impact's face. He knows it. This one is definitely cooked. It is a 10,000 gold lead here. We may see Sentinels just try to come out and contest at that Elder Dragon, but 10K, Soul, Baron, DSG, full control start to finish, it feels like, on this one. Really playing a great game, and Castle just monstrously ahead now. 4K in the gold lead. Impact trying to just kind of create a little bit of space to knock down that wave so they can then run mid and try to clear out that wave that Kryra is buffing up.
Yeah, I mean, Sentinels really just trying to walk forward because they knew it was 5v3, but since they're more of a counter-engaged team composition, unless Huhi finds some miracle play with no stopwatch to not instantly get one shot, they're not going to be able to withstand this. But yeah, they're playing 1-3-1, which is, generally speaking, a pretty risky strategy, but with Nocturne, able to pick their side.
Yep, going to be going in onto Darkwings, and he is just dead in a hurry. That is the difficulty of playing against that Nocturne in that mid lane. Joins the side lane very easily. Down on the bot side, you can see no one there to answer that wave. As Sentinels were trying to clear out mid, we're trying to respond to the dive top. DSG, though, make the dive cleanly happen. Kryra stays top now. They're going to lose all 3 towers in a hurry.
I mean, this is the best game I've seen DSG play. They're doing so much right, as we might just see him die.
Yeah, Castle does fall, but they triple inhib them at the same time, very likely. A little bit of health on that mid lane one. The Jhin ulti going to be opening up. Sentinels tried to force the fight here, as they are going to get a nice Rue. Good catch onto Sajet. He gets burst down. Lions falls as well. There's actually a timing window to maybe try to force Elder. The tough part is it could still get stolen. Maybe someone could backdoor, as Kryra's still on the map, but 30 seconds until Elder spawns. There's 40 seconds here onto Sajet. And Castle won't have TP when he respawns.
If that's not a caster curse, I don't know what is. They had played so well. I'm like, best game they've seen. It was looking like one of the best games I've seen in LCS this split. It's not obviously not the fastest game, but just like the decisions they were making, the macro they were using. I know I Will Dominate compared Kryra to Inspired last week. I was really buying into that with the way they were moving around the map and his ult usage and just his timing all around the map. And then the team does that, and it's kind of like, okay, they're still working on things. They're still not as clean as they could be.
It's not Inspired. He's Inspired Junior. So give him a couple of years.
It's not his fault. He just wasn't controlling the team well enough. But as you mentioned, this could be Sentinels trying to pull the game back. They're just going to flip this Elder if they know it's good for him.
It's just, I don't know if they can kill it fast enough. Sajed has respawned. He's running out on the map. Going to try to just burst this down. We'll see if they can make it happen. In comes the engage. Kryra going into the backline onto Rahel. Kryra getting incredibly low, though. The Dragon getting pretty low here as well, as Darkwings is going to get knocked down by Call Me. Call Me as well as Castle just piling into the backline. Huhi is down. Darkwings is down. Sentinels are looking like they are toast. As insult to injury, Kryra even grabs the Elder. They're going to finish him off. They're going to clean up the game. DSG looking like they are marching on the Nexus and going to be able to take a lead here in this best-of-5 series. They will strike first, and they will strike really dominantly here as they knock him down 32 minutes in. Soul, Elder, Baron, 20-8 in the kill score. They did it all, and they made it look good.
They were really just fantasy point maxing. I think at the end of the day, that's a perfect way to pick up 5 extra kills at the Elder Drake. But game 1 of this best-of-5 goes south.
Allowing you to have 50 Fury, then W, get the Empowered, then insta RQ, and you get double Empowered abilities back-to-back instantly. So really cool little tricks from that. I'm loving that segment. Been a lot of fun to watch. Sentinels, we'll see if they can use some of those tricks here to tie up the series as they got thoroughly trounced by DSG in game number 1 and on some of their kind of iconic picks. It's Impact on a great tank, it's Darkwings on a control mage. Could be a little scary.
But DSG just played to their win conditions wonderfully. You can see what is banned from Fearless in the middle. They had the triple divers and they used the dive just right. I would say for the people asking, like, what was Sentinel's plan in that game? Well, the plan was to not fall 5,000 gold behind and then be better in 5v5s because they were almost better in 5v5s prior to the Soul. But now we'll see what happens in the rest of the series because we were just talking about how Rahel has been the main win condition for Sentinels oftentimes on hyper carries. And because DSG had so many divers, that pushed him off of hyper carries like Jhin. But now that those divers are no longer accessible, maybe this draft will open up more for a Rahel carry. Remember, both these 80 carries are insane on Kai'Sa, which is going to be a priority pick as soon as one of them lock it in as well.
Yep, will be very interesting to see who grabs that first. As Rise, obviously first picked here for Darkwings, really high prio pick. Azir was banned out in both of the games so far, and Orion has been taken away. So Rise, kind of king of the mid lane from this position. We have seen people responding with both the Anivia as well as the Cassio. Those are kind of becoming the two really popular ones. A lot of early and mid-game power here, though, with the Renekton as well as the Pantheon. Point-and-click CC, a lot of lockdown, which can be something that Rise does struggle against. Rise is relatively short range. Obviously, you can get tanky, but it's hard to pump out the damage when you're just constantly getting stunned. For
sure. And another mini global for Kryra. He had a Pantheon game against LYON where he was very effective as well. So another double AD top jungle. Last game they had the Ambessa Nocturne. This time they have the Renekton Pantheon. They had a very strong top jungle in game 1. I think they're going to look to run that back.
Yep. Jarvan going to be coming through, so now we see, will Impact go for a counter pick here, or are they going to be trying to not necessarily match those roles? Maybe grab something for Rahel like we had talked about. But I kind of am assuming it makes sense, just go for Impact's pick right now. You see the Renekton, and just kind of go forward from there. It prevents them from going for any sort of protection bans. Gnar has become the really popular answer. I mean, it was for many, many years. Has been just losing in the LCS, but Impact very heavily associated with the Gnar. Maybe not as much in the more recent years, but I feel like it's one of his iconic picks.
And we got the Kai'Sa locked in this time. It ended up getting banned in the 4-5. Both Rahel and Sajed have looked incredible on this pick whenever they've had it. And there's already two, I'd say, Kai'Sa enablers that press their stun to apply the Kai'Sa passive so she can fly in at the end of fights. So I'd say DSG is going to be very happy about their first 3 picks in this draft.
It's also great, not only for the application of the plasma to be able to ult in, but something that I think sometimes people overlook is it really increases your DPS, right? Especially when you are these full AP builds. We were talking about this on the dive. Medios was saying how, in one of the games last week, one of the full AP Kai'Sas, their passive got up to doing 48% missing health damage. So when you have a lot of stuns and you're constantly applying plasma, you are proccing that like non-stop. When you're AP and you hit a W, that's 3 stacks of plasma. 2 stuns, a root, whatever. That's an insta-proc, and you are dealing 48% missing health damage. That is a 7-item AP Kai'Sa, to be fair, but it is quite a DPS increase at times. We are seeing the expected bans here. Mid lane going to be targeted by Sentinels as they have their mid laner. Bot lane going to be targeted by DSG as they, of course, do have their bot laner. And it is a couple of those hyper carries that you had talked about, you know, for Rahel. They ban away the Aphelios, they ban away the Yunara. They already double banned them in the first phase as well. You know, you can go towards some of the less common carry picks. You know, things like Jinx do sometimes come out, Zeri and so on. Corki is up and available if you want to go for a Corki. But Corki is the only thing that he has played that is not banned, so I'm kind of expecting he might just go there.
Probably has to. They don't ban out the Anivia despite banning out the Talia, so wouldn't be shocked if they go Anivia into the Rise here. That's becoming a more popular pick. I mean, Raz said during Waiting Room that Rahel's been the best performing AD carry in the LCS. It seems like DSG doesn't completely disagree with that, as all of their bans have just been slammed into Rahel.
They definitely agree that he's the best performing AD carry on Sentinels, at the very least, you know? So, at the very least. So we know that much, so.
Ashe. Ooh, Ashe Seraphine.
Oh, this is actually hype. This is a really cool combo because of the passive slow from Ashe. It empowers the root. So if you are slowed when you get one hit of the Seraphine E, it roots you. If you are rooted, you get stunned, right? So when you do an auto or a W from Ashe, and then you have an empowered E, it actually stuns you from Seraphine. But the response of Blitzcrank is really hype.
DSG doesn't care. Like, they do not care what you pick. They will immediately slam whatever, you know, the old school counter is going to be. They're looking to be exceptionally flexible in these drafts. I don't necessarily think this is like a winning lane always, but it's a skill check that they're going to be able to land the hooks and play aggressive.
I feel like jungle basically has to go bot in this game. Like, you have to play towards bot, because I actually think DSG in the 2v2, as long as you don't get hooked by Sentinels and you just play in the minions, I think they're going to stomp them. I think it's going to be really hard in the 2v2 against Ashe Seraphine. It is a really tough lane to fight into, but if Kryra is there and you get flash knocked up and hooked, you're just dead, because you're going to get CC chain 100-0. It is going to be really, really difficult. So that is the challenge here for Rahel and Huhi, but very cool combo. Also worth noting that the Blitzcrank R pops shields. You have Seraph Shield from the Rise, you have Jarvan W, potentially even could be Asterix on Gnar, you have the Seraphine heals and shields as well, so like there's some value there too. This is honestly a really cool slam there from Lions, and they didn't hesitate at all. They saw that come through and they just insta-slammed it down, so exciting draft for game 2.
That's the more exciting part for me, is it wasn't like they see the Ashe Seraphine, which it's a combo that other teams have picked historically, but we haven't seen in the LCS, and they immediately knew exactly what they wanted to do. It was a risky thing, and they did it right away, which just makes you think that this team is brimming with confidence, and it's such a stark contrast to what DSG was like last year. This is just a completely new team. They're completely trying to change their brand, and as you mentioned, junglers going bottom, Kryra's already there. He's hoping that they're going to check the bush, and they might be pulling off some shenanigans in the early game. Ooh, this is interesting.
Yeah, Kryra is looking like he wants to even potentially just start down here, but Huhi is moving to support. They know this is happening. I mean, Pantheon level 1 is very strong, and now they spot him, so now Kryra's going to have to just leave. He's not going to, like, die or anything, but you can't re-invade.
That really hurts Kryra right there. He was hoping to take over bot side.
Ooh, he's way behind.
But Huhi and Hambach really scout that out. Like, starting the sweeper as well as checking right after he starts it is kind of disastrous for DSG, but it makes me think the Sentinels were expecting this from the start of the game.
Yeah, they very clearly were. It's a great read from them. Maybe it's something that they've seen out of Kryra in scrims. You had touched on it earlier, but even when DSG was playing with Kisno, they were still scrimming with Kryra. I believe they said that they had like 3 total scrims with Kisno ever. Yeah. So clearly they have been scrimming against him. There is the cost, though, of Sajed getting the push. So we have Raz now standing on the sideline with Golden Glue. What do you think about that early game?
That's right. I've got Golden Glue with me right now, if you can look at the screen.
That's me. Hello.
As in, like, what are you, because right now you're basically not too happy about how the level 1 has been going.
Well, the level 1, I mean, I don't know. Oh, gosh, we just got hooked. I mean, I feel like I was a little spooked out watching that, especially with the camera vision. You know, I couldn't tell if we're about to get hooked or not. We pushed them off the red, but I still think right now it's looking very spicy in the early game.
It's a very spicy game, and I'll see if I can ask this question before I send it to casters. Just the thoughts on game one, because game one, it felt like a pretty slow, burning loss. Where do you think that's coming from, and like maybe something that you want to see from your team?
Yeah, I mean, I think in game one, we had a little bit too much scaling and not enough priority. So as you can see, we kind of flipped it around. We have much more prio lanes this game, so we can have a stronger early game and kind of protect our camps more. So that's kind of like the change we're making game one to game two.
And there's a lot to be afraid of because of how spicy this game is, but anything that you're noting from this composition, because an Ashe Seraphine is cool, but then seeing the Blitzcrank from Lions, anything you're concerned about from the DSG side of the comp?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Pantheon and Blitz are a bit scary. They've got like the global to go on Rise on side, but I do think it's one of those things is if we're grouped up, we can kind of, I think we'll win the fight. We just make sure we don't get picked off by random hooks or like split. Oh shit. Oh shit.
It is what it is. We'll send it to the casters because the action is going on.
He's so stressed. Golden Glue is so stressed, man.
Oh, poor Golden Glue. He's looking extremely stressed.
At least they're double crabbing him. I mean, Hambach has done a good job capitalizing off of that late invade, so he's going to be 2 full crabs up. There was nothing really Kryra could have done to avoid that, and now might be, and you know, also gets the deep vision. I think resetting is the correct call as well, but despite the hooks, that lane's still working out fairly well for them. He burned his flash, but I'd say it's worth it so far.
Yeah, I mean, the 2v2 is pretty unplayable, I think, for Jed and Lions unless you can kill them. They have Force Flash, so they have their own Flash and the Jungle Flash, and maybe they can call him down. But wanted to touch on Kryra, as we may see him getting involved. Another Flash force there by Lions, as Kryra was so good for DSG in his debut. Really showed up huge, playing against one of his heroes in Inspired. Darkwings does know they're down towards that bottom side, so should be able to sniff this out and avoid it. And will be able to do so. And he's on that ward.
Yeah, we'll be able to see it now, but we'll also just, I mean, he's lit up like a Christmas tree in here. He's walked through vision time and time again. They'll even see him doing the Gromp. So the rest of the lanes can play with a lot of safety, but it's just a matter of what can they actually pressure, because Darkwings has no Flash Ghost, and Impact is going CS for CS and trading very aggressively with Castle up top lane.
I mean, it was just so fun for me to see, you know, Kryra coming in, going up against Inspired. You're like, well, that's the hardest person you could debut against for a jungler. And having so much confidence, you know, not only did he play well, but he was kind of styling. Like he was, you know, popping off on the player cam. Then in game 3 on the Mundo, he's in the base, he's spam taunting, you know, showing some personality, showing that confidence, which is just great to see, because this was a DSG roster that, you know, according to Ido, was meant to be kind of built around Kryra, and the idea that Ido really feels strongly, you play through jungle. That is the way to play the game right now. And Castle, he's trying to push for 6, but Impact at 6 first. Castle levels up, hits the ulti, has to flash back to do it. Castle thought he was going to get there first. Rise does have no flash, but in comes the Realm Warp, and that is going to be a freebie, you have to think, for Darkwings. Castle trying to buy time for the abilities to come back, but can he slice and dice out to safety? They are waiting a long time on this. Impact is scared. He doesn't want to get involved because he knows he could get taken out. Rune Prison will grab first blood for Darkwings. Nicely done. Castle overplayed his hand. He thought he was going to get 6 first, but Impact beat him to it.
Yeah, something must have happened with the way the minions went, because with where the wave was, I would think Renekton would get level 6 in that 1v1 as well. But Impact outplays him. And then also I'd say the Rise is the great equalizer there. Whenever you have a really aggressive top lane trading pattern, whichever mid laner can move first often sways the matchup, and that's what ends up happening there.
Yeah, really nicely done. I mean, Darkwings had no flash, but he just moves up towards top. You know, Realm Warps in. And so we can see it one more time.
Yeah, watching this, trying to count the minions. Yeah, Impact just hits level 6 first. Must have had the experience advantage beforehand. Castle getting level 6 does delay it to prevent the actual one-shot. And aggression coming bot lane, but look.
Lions has no hook, so his hook missed, and that is how the lane looks when you have no hook, is they just walk at you. You are outranged on the Kai'Sa, who he, though, has no flash, gonna get flashed on here, and the follow-up knock-up is there. Sajed coming in, they knock him down. Good gank from Kryra, but Hambach is level 6 first. Oh. Flashes forward, ults in. Sajed is locked into this Cataclysm, but Rahel cannot really join. Rahel is just hitting Kryra, and now Hambach on the side is losing the fight. Sajed flashes away.
That's
barely
crazy.
Survives. as everything goes pear-shaped. Rahel was just hitting Kryra. He needed to stay with Hombach, or Hombach needed to stay with him, but they were not on the same page.
That is crazy that they ended up coming out of that one ahead. Hombach was level 6, Kryra was level 5, Lions was out of health, and they end up getting 2 kills out of nothing. That negates a lot of the advantage that had been built from the early laning from Rahel and Huhi. What a massive just finger check there from DSG to come out on top against Sentinels.
Yeah, Kryra, right place, right time. And even though Hombach had 6, he had the advantage. Ash was not hitting who he was hitting. They were just not on the same target. So everyone was low, but no one died. And that is one of those disaster scenarios where you kind of wonder, what were the comms like? You know, were they just calling for different things? Did they not realize what their teammates wanted to do? Because Hombach even committed his flash to go in on Sajed there, but Rahel was not in range, and he still had flash ghost. So you have to feel like there's a way they could have played that to hit the same target and probably come out on top.
I absolutely think so. But now Sajed, despite being down 15 to 20 CS, is even in gold and also is 30 CS through his call. So he's going to be well on his way to being powerful. And the Kai'Sa power for both of these guys has been very high. As you can see, 3 games in every series, Sajed has played it. In 2 of the series, Rahel has played it, and both of them have absolutely dominated on it. So we thought this was going to be a Game 1 pick. It ended up being a Game 2 pick that DSG picked early. So look out for Sajed later on in this game.
Call me. Got a nice little trade there down on the Dark Wings, who of course is playing Phase Rush. It has been nerfed a little bit for range users, but he's also on the Swifties. He has Ghost. He's got a ton of move speed to deal with some of the difficulties in this matchup. But Anivia scales really, really well, and the wall can be so effective. It's just kind of splitting up fights and making it annoying. You know, even if you're not just walling someone in for a stun, sometimes you can just wall out the Ashe or the Seraphine or whatever and kind of split up the fight and try to turn things around that way. But it is a bit of a tricky champion because it has such low mobility. You've really got to be careful about your positioning. This is not Phase Rush Orianna. This is not Azir where you're zipping around a fight. You got to be in the right place at the start of the fight.
Yeah, definitely an old school pick that has found new prevalence into this Rise. And I think overall, it's not like it's just against a Rise. I'd say it's good against the Ashe Seraphine too, just since it's 3 people that don't have a good way of navigating that wall. So it should allow them for some nice team fighting later. And Nocturne is in this game very briefly, but I think Drake is going to be traded for Grubs here, which if you're DSG, you're very happy about. Against the Ashe Seraphine, being able to get the first Drake on your side is huge.
It really is. You know, we saw Golden Glue in that interview talking about how they picked for winning lanes, but things weren't really going that great in the early laning. You know, Castle was kind of outlaning Impact in the first couple levels. He had pressure on him. You know, he got hooked twice, so they kind of lost some pressure there. Darkwing's going to be able to stop the recall from Call Me as he's getting quite low on mana, and Darkwings did just get back to lane. So happy to delay that base, but Call Me should have enough mana to just clear out this wave and then reset.
Kryra completely recovered from that early game as well, basically because of that skirmish down bottom lane. That, if you look back on this game, if this ends up being a DSG win, it's going to be about that fight that happened a couple minutes ago where the CS advantage was removed essentially between Sajed and Rahel in terms of overall gold, and then it also allowed Kryra to gain back the advantage from his failed level 1 invade. Now it's kind of all on where Lions can go. It's still a difficult lane for him to play, but they're in a situation now where they might have the damage that one hook can actually lead to a kill.
Yeah, and Blitz is just one of these champions where if you are controlling vision, it is terrifying. And if you see the Blitz everywhere, he feels worthless.
Yeah.
He is just doing nothing at all. So it is going to be a big vision game here. Of course, it is scary for Huhi to be checking things, but he's walking with Dark Wings at this point. Not going to be too worried about it. And it's just a really tough matchup in the 2v2 if you are not landing those hooks. So we'll see. Seraphine scales incredibly well, and I just kind of have this feeling that the game is going to move more and more and more towards enchanters. With the role quest giving additional gold to supports, enchanters just outpace melee supports so heavily when they're on multiple items, and it's much easier to get towards multiple items in competitive games now than it ever really has been, because control wards cost less, you get passive gold. As Impact taking a big trade here against Castle, who will be forced to pop that ult, has his flash, may have to use it as in comes the Realm Warp. Can he even survive? Flash forward there from Hombach with the flash Q. Darkwing's going to try to finish him off. Drops the turret aggro, barely survives. Wasn't the cleanest, but they do get it done on the second roam from Darkwings.
Is it worth it, I think, is going to be a question, though, as they're pushed off bot lane entirely, and a couple of plates go over to Calmy. So Darkwings did get that assist, but he had a 600 gold lead before that roam, has a 300 gold lead now, has really relieved the pressure on the Anivia and given up pressure on the bottom lane. So that might have been an overinvestment. We'll see if Impact can take over the side lane from here, but the immediate reaction to that play is that it monetarily wasn't worth it in the short term.
Yeah, I completely agree. Hanbok going to get spotted on the ward. They're still waiting around. I don't think he's going to expect this. Going to get stunned in. In comes the killer instinct from Sajed. Hanbok, remember, he spent his flash in the previous play. Sajed going to have to cleanse flash out. Nice sidestep on the ulti coming through there from Huhi, but Darkwings is coming on the roam. He's going to be able to reinforce them pretty quickly. Calmy trying to get there in time to help out. Maybe can throw it on the wall and keep Kyra safe. Looks like he will be able to. Lions has the hook back up, but it's going to be a whiff as Darkwings is just going to push forward through this Anivia ulti, gets walled out. No one does die, but a lot of summoners spent. If it wasn't for Sajed sidestepping the Seraphine ult, I think he would have went down.
I completely agree. Flash, ult, and cleanse all down from Sajed. You can see Flash is still up for the mid lane as well as both AD carry and support for Sentinels. So they win out overall on that little 4v4. I want to credit Darkwings for a lot of this early game. He has been first to move in so many situations. I think he's been crucial to their ability to play with Prio. But with all that being said, gold is even and it's 1 Drake to 0 for DSG. So a lot of league left to be played.
Absolutely is. And double tiers stacking up, of course, for Huhi and Darkwings. And Anivia has a tier of his own. But it always feels really nice on these Enchanter supports to be able to afford the tier and not get punished, because you're spending a lot of your early game gold for no combat power whatsoever. But the Whispering Circlet upgrades into like Diadem or whatever. That item is very, very strong for Enchanters. And helps with a lot of the mana issues that you do have. So being able to actually have an Enchanter support item, that is some of the changes that I think really did help out Enchanters coming into the season.
I completely agree. I think if you want to gain Elo and you don't mind playing Enchanters, like just doing tier Seraphine and Sona all day in solo queue and playing a lot of games, you're just going to gain Elo, man. Like, you're just, the shielding and healing becomes so overpowering later in the game. In Pro, it can definitely be a little different with all the different angles and coordination that DSG can engage on them with. So it's the complete opposite, really, of playing Nico, where he's constantly looking for these engage angles. He needs to be constantly on the lookout of getting engaged on. But if they set up in the 5v5, once he has that fully upgraded Diadem of Songs, will be very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, the baseline of Seraphine is just comically higher than that of Blitzcrank, right? Blitzcrank must hit a hook on a primary carry to have equal or better value than the Seraphine, who just has to basically press W in a team fight, right? Like, if you hit a tank, if you hit no one, you're doing nothing on Blitzcrank. So a lot of pressure on Lions. We'll see if he can make something happen. He's going to get connected onto by that Ash arrow. Has his flash available. Didn't flash anything. Just CC'd down. 100 to 0. In comes Kryra and Calmy. They arrive. Flashing forward there on a Hanbok. They're going to try to knock him down. Sajed gets the kill there as Darkwings arrives. Sajed incredibly low. Rahel pushing forward. He's going to fall. Calmy in trouble. Kryra in trouble. He's going to go back in with the Sun. Try to take one with him. But he's rooted up. He's stunned up. Rahel gets a double. And the fight from DSG goes terribly as Rahel gets paid and gets the double buff.
That's the fight that could swing the game for Sentinels. Double buffs all across the board. The Rise ult comes in at just the right time. I mean, Calmy's going to try and move in right here, but this seems rather ambitious by Calmy and Lions.
Yeah, I mean, with what damage are you going to do something here? He's hoping for some sort of a misplay, a miracle steal, but they're going to be able to grab it. No problem at all. Lions did have the hook, but didn't think he had to flash the ulti coming through from the Ashe. But once he got tagged by that, the CC chain was brutal because in comes Hanbok, in comes the CC from Huhi, and I don't know if he got a spell off. He just kind of died for free.
No, he got absolutely nothing off. I feel like if he even just gets an ult off, it might be enough to equalize that fight. And I think that's kind of what DSG was hoping for, because once the engage happened, DSG kind of fully committed to this fight. So kind of watch this. As the arrow comes in, Kryra and Anivia are already in River, so Pantheon starts channeling his ult and the teleport now, thinking that maybe Lions would be able to fight back. Now they're committed, they're trying to salvage the play. Kryra gets hit by the Seraphine ultimate, so tries to go all in, and they do kill Hanbok, but all of this is just a result of how clean that initial kill was and how DSG immediately took the fight once the Ash arrow engaged, so it ends up becoming a very big win for Sentinels.
Darkwings does have no sums, but Castle does not have the damage to be able to finish him off there. And it's going to end up equalizing that trade as Darkwings pop the Ghost and trades it back at the end of it. And yeah, I mean, it was just great CC chain in on the Lions, Crystal Arrow into the knockup, into a stun from the E coming through from Huhi because there was all that CC already on him. And that just meant he went down in a hurry, and Huhi timed the encore, the ulti, really, really well. So not only did he hit Cryo, but he forced the flash from Call Me.
Yeah.
You know, it was really well done. And once you lose some of those engage tools, Rahel's stepping forward, and he is going to be slowing you down and really punishing you heavily. So this game now feels like it is definitely going in the favor of Sentinels. We'll see if they can turn this around as Hambak going to take the bad end of a trade there. Kryra gets him chunked down a little bit low, but Hambak does get some damage back to try to even things out. And you can see Kryra just feels like, hey, I need to protect Anivia in the side lane because Anivia, very low mobility, can be super vulnerable, especially with no flash.
I mean, Sajed is going to be in a position where he's the one who needs to carry. He's got a decent amount of gold on the Kai'Sa, but it's just a really hard game to play right now if he's always flying into the Ashe Seraphine. You can see DSG really want to be able to contest this, but probably realize that it's a losing fight. So more indecision for sure in this game out of DSG because they're not even aggressively trading elsewhere. Whenever you're kind of just eye contacting someone at an objective and you decide not to engage, you end up not trading back for much on the rest of the map.
Yeah, they were trying to push as fast as they could with Castle, but you know, maybe denied a minion or two. I'm not even sure if he got a plate, but not much of anything, as you're saying. You know, Impact had his TP available, so he TP's down as soon as that objective does fall. And Impact was just ready for it. He had the Meganar ready to go, had the TP to respond to the side lane, so well prepped there by Sentinels. They play the map well. Sajed, though, is that one with the gold lead here, up about 900 gold, even though he's down farm and has the same amount of kills as Rahel, so has been able to cash in on some of those plates. Impact could be in some trouble. There's the stun into the hook. Do they have the damage here from Kryra? Will he Mega out? Huhi flashes in, has the shield to try to protect him, and now Impact's going to be able to go Mega. Castle gets knocked up. He's going to be thrown to the wall, surely. In comes the ulti there from Huhi. They don't have the damage to finish anyone off just yet. Rahel now arriving. Hambak messes up. Oh, no, okay, I guess that was the Spectator. Kind of went weird on the flag and drag, but does end up knocking him down. Rahel pushing forward. Can they try to turn anything around? Kryra has to flash out. Sajed is in trouble. This is a disaster. Lions is incredibly low. They're corralled under the turret. Call Me comes in. Can they defend the dive? Lions is so low, Herald, and they have the Herald. This is going to go down in a hurry. Hambak going to get interrupted, though, by the Anivia wall. Nicely played by Call Me. They still don't have a wave here, as the Anivia may have just bailed them out of this situation. Well done, but on the other side of the map, the Rise is cashing in the top lane.
I mean, it's bad for DSG, but it could have been a lot worse. As you can see, Darkwings getting free plates. I feel like Hambak actually jumped out of the Herald there. Not entirely sure if it was the wall that canceled or not, but I thought the Herald would have allowed them to dive if it just stayed in turret range. I think everyone there under the turret would have died, but regardless, they lose the members, they lose multiple waves, and now they're 3,000 gold down in the game.
Yeah, was that that Anivia wall? He just threw it down when he hopped in. That got the interrupt. Maybe he could have just not got in.
I think you just don't get in.
Exactly. Just let the Herald go for the charge. He can still wall it, but then you're spending the wall on just on the Herald and not really getting anything done. And Huhi able to come in. They just don't have enough damage to kill off this Impact.
It's a Renekton who's behind and a Gnar who's ahead, which we talk about as the scaling of those early ganks. And then the Kai'Sa's just behind on the play. I'd say Huhi, with the ultimate, even though it only hits one, delays the play long enough. And yeah, the flag drag, all doesn't matter, got the kill. Before eventually DSG managing to live under the turret, but still 2,500 gold 20 minutes in.
Yep, looking good. Darkwing scaling well this game. Gonna pop the Ghost early here. Kryra may be able to catch up to him, does have that smite, but on the other side, it's gonna be Lions again getting caught out. They are behind, and when you're behind on Blitz, you are looking useless, and Lions definitely is looking that this game thus far as Huhi, Hambak, and Rahel take him out. A lot of crystals built up there. Call Me trying to get some damage down. In comes the Encore, gonna get flashed by Call Me. Nicely done by him. Kryra arrives. In comes everyone from DSG. Impact on the side, though, is crushing them. Puts the Anivia into the egg, and there's a shutdown onto Rahel. Sajed is just free-firing now. Sajed is starting to pick up a lot of kills, but can Impact and Darkwings make it happen? It's the solo laners here on the side trying to get it done. Impact goes into mini. They're gonna try to back it up. Can Castle get in over onto Darkwings? Slice, dice. The slow does not connect as the phase rush was still proc, but the stun does come through, and now Sajed is going forward. They're trying to knock him down. Do they have the damage? Just barely get the shutdown. Castle gets paid. That was a great fight for DSG.
They're absolute psychopaths. I mean, Call Me seemed like he started that in a 1v4, but this is the sneaky power of both Sajed and Rahel on Kai'Sa. They just seem to clean up these messy fights, and now he's really fed on the Kai'Sa after the end of that, and that's without the 800 gold shutdown going down at the end. So Hambak wanted to get that engage, but Sajed bails on the Ash Arrow, leaves Lions to die. Great bodyguard. And then it's like, you feel like the play is completely over, but as Calmy's in this bush, they coordinate it with the teleport from the Renekton and the Pantheon ultimate. With Rahel being positioned up top, they actually kill him at the start of the fight. And then when it's 180 carried to 0, there's not enough damage to kill the level 14 Renekton. So a really psycho fight that Sentinels just wasn't expecting to have happen, but DSG was all on the same page. Now they're going for Drake.
Yeah, we're back to live over here by the Dragon. Can DSG knock this down? Hambak is in the area. It is getting focused down quick. Ash Arrow will not connect onto Call Me. Is he able to sidestep it? Impact has Megan already. He's going to go in. It's going to be secured, though, by Kryra on the side. We can see Impact has CC'd up Lions, who goes down in a hurry. The Sun comes across multiple members as they are locked in the Cataclysm. Kryra can't get anything done, but Sajed is going to ult into the side, knocks down Hambak. Call Me trying to duel against Darkwings here, who's going to be able to win out on that one. A bit of a scrappy fight, but at the end of the day, DSG do get the Dragon, and it is just the 1-for-1. They kill off Hambak.
Scrappy fight in a very scrappy game. The Smite steal going in the favor of Kryra is what makes this a winning play, but then when Castle picks up this turret, that's a bounty that he picked up on Ryze at the end of the last fight. That's 2 turrets that he's picked up as well. So despite dying 3 times, he's actually up 800 gold on the Renekton. Watching this one more time, these fights are really about whether or not Sajed can make a strong entrance. And at the beginning of the fight, the Seraphine and the Ashe kind of keep him back. So big smite here, 1500 to 0, times it with the Q. Sajed just waited until someone was spread out in this fight, and it's actually Hambak. Once he took that EQ through the team, Sajed says, hey, wait a second. You're completely walled off from the team. The Anivia ult and the wall was holding the middle of the river, and they end up trading it 1-for-1, which they are very happy about.
I feel like Call Me is smurfing in a lot of these fights too. You know, that previous fight, he was playing really well. This was a quote from Sven on Pros about picking, Sentinels or DSG. He said that they originally wanted to pick Sentinels, but then they couldn't because they got second seed. And a lot of people thought, okay, well, you're going to pick DSG. But instead, they actually picked FlyQuest, so showing that their power rankings kind of had DSG as the best of those 3 teams. And Castle, going to be annoying, steals that red buff away. Should be able to walk this one out, but yeah, I mean, Call Me has just played so confidently with all the move speed that he has. He has the upgraded Swifty boots and, flying in a lot of these fights, utilizing his passive well, forcing people to go in on him, and creating space for the rest of his team.
I mean, his weird river flank in that mid lane fight is what actually turned it, and that's crazy as well.
He goes in very nicely timed ult from Rahel. He just stuns him instantly when he arrives. No one from DSG was really in the area to follow up. I'm not sure what Kryra saw there. Maybe didn't realize so many members were around, but he dies for free. And now they're just going to start the Baron. Okay,
so it's just Anivia Blitz Kai'Sa. This might be one where they try and trade gold rather than fight, since Sajed might want to protect his gold lead. Let's see the teleport in. Nars no TP, so it is a temporary 4v4. No jungler, though.
They got to force. Castle pops the ulti. They're going for it. They're looking for Rahel. Rahel is going to get actually cleansed out, but he just dies anyway. Darkwings on the side is getting zoned off. Hambak is in some trouble. Sajed ults forward. Darkwings is going to fall. Impact has now arrived. He almost has Mega. Can he make something happen? Does land the stun. The wall up comes through. Jumps in. Stuns up Sajed. Knocks down Sajed. Huhi on the side. Trying to run from Call Me. Going to have to flash over the wall. Hambak and Impact battling against Castle, but Castle pushes them back. DSG hold on, defend the Baron, aren't able to get it themselves though, thanks to the reinforcements from Impact knocking down Sajed.
Still, your call out on Call Me is true once again this fight. He is just landing these incredibly slow moving skill shots on priority targets every single time. So we're gonna watch the beginning of this. They thought Rahel was catchable.
What did he see?
He sees Rahel in mid lane, and he's going to stun him into a blitz hook. But then when all of Sentinels see him channeling, they can see where he's going and collapse very quickly. From here, though, Rahel just gets caught between a rock and a hard place. The Renekton is pushing him. The wall pushes him into the Renekton as well, and Sajed can just walk him down. The continuation of this fight also ends up being a little bit messy, since Huhi's pushed out the back. Anivia stuns Darkwings, and it's just become a scrappy game where I'd say the Kai'Sa keeps getting more and more gold, and Rahel is actually the one that keeps getting picked off by the Pantheon or the Renekton or a random Kai'Sa flying in.
And I mean, even with that perfect Mikhail's there from Huhi on the Renekton side, it just didn't matter because so much damage was piling in on Rahel. And I think what actually happened with that Kryra ult, there was a pink ward in the side brush from Sentinel, so I think he didn't see the rise. I don't think he realized that Darkwings was there. So I think he thought, oh, it's just the Ashe, I send it, and then all of a sudden you get Vision as you're ulting in. Oh, Rise is there too. That's problematic. So able to turn it around, and now DSG up 1K gold, even with Sentinels. Feeling like they had a much better start than last game. DSG has been able to find a lot of success. It feels like the Blitz hasn't done really anything, to be honest, but it just hasn't mattered because the rest of the team is playing so well.
Blitz has really done nothing.
Yeah.
It's been...
he landed that hook early in the lane that got a flash at like 2 minutes.
He takes damage in team fights that isn't damage dealt to someone who matters.
You know what he's done? He bought Vandal Pipes. He knows his role. He's going to apply, he's going to give an attack speed buff to the Kai'Sa.
He needs to apply CC to proc the pipes, so you never know. Just an E or a Q. I agree with you. The pipes are important.
Yeah.
Looks like we might see it like a Baron for Drake trade. With the current value of Baron, I'm actually taking Drake most of the time, but if they can get a fight with Sentinels being low, it would be worth it. So they're going to slowly move up here, as Hambach is now at a quarter health.
Oh, there's the Ashe arrow in on the Castle. They're locking him up in the CC chain. It's just not ending. Castle, even through the Sterix, even through the ulti, just goes down. That CC was never ending. Really beautiful chain between the Ashe, the Gnar, the Seraphine, and now they are over onto this Baron. This Seraphine already on 2 completed items, plus the upgraded boots, plus the tier. DSG realized we can't contest this. Hui's going to keep them too healthy. They're going to have to trade for the Dragon.
Yep, 4v5. They have to trade for the Drake as well. That's kind of the worst case scenario, though, when you're slow checking if your Renekton ends up getting one shot. Not enough tenacity to break the CC chain. But Sentinels really have to do something with this Baron power play now because they're giving up Soul Point. Mountain Soul Point, which I think if they complete the Soul, they will end up winning the game. That's 1 tier 2 turret, makes the Baron power play plus 1,600. Honestly, paying 1,500 gold for Mountain Drake is seeming pretty even to me, so the rest of this Baron will still be very important for Sentinels.
Exactly. That's the real question, is how much can you get with it? The disparity in power between Blitz and Seraphine now cannot be overstated. I think it's the biggest differential in power between anyone in this game. Like, he's up multiple levels. He's on 2.5 items. He's going to have 3 items on the Enchanter pretty soon. Lions is on 1.5. He is useless unless he can actually hook the Ashe or the Rise or something, or maybe the Seraphine. But not really being given the opportunity. And the timing on the CC chain from Sentinels is so well done. Like, it's easy to see that and say, oh, look at that CC. It's so easy to do, but they're not overlapping anything. It's just perfect. And they're just locking Castle. Like, his build is pretty tanky. He's got a Death Dance and a Sterix, died through that with the ulti already popped.
Yeah. Might want to go for some Mercury Treads. I know the Steel Caps are very good against Ashe, but if he's going to be getting CC chained like that, he needs a little bit more freedom. Trying to get some mid plates here as Sajet is clearing the turret. Everyone's doing a really good job hiding behind minions as well, making sure Lions stays useless.
And a level 11 on the Blitzcrank. Very far down in the experience now at this point. Hui's closing in on 14 about by the time that Lions does hit 12. So the scaling really powerful now. Of course, you are hoping you can kind of just delay this Baron buff as much as possible, and that Sajet can just crush it in the team fights. He's on 4 items, has the Zhonya's, and has shown his prowess on this Kai'Sa a number of times. Yeah,
just some insane team fight outplay potential. But if the more fed the Seraphine gets, the beefier the team fight ball can become for Sentinels. And these team fights have become really, really spread out, which I feel like if they stay a little bit closer together can be better for Sentinels. Hard to push against Anivia, though.
By both, honestly. Wow. Great side steps across the board as Hui now throwing in the Encore. In comes Kryra. He's going to be looking, flashes forward, tries to knock him down, but Kryra's incredibly low and Kryra's going to fall. Sentinels get another kill there as Hambach goes forward. Castle will survive. The hook gets a minion. That's about the best he's done in a while. As Castle trying to threaten, but he just can't. Sajet is outraged. In comes the Mega Gnar. He's going to get stunned up against the wall. Wallop does connect, and now Call Me in a lot of trouble. Going to get Mega Gnar against the wall. He goes into the passive egg. Sajet is focusing down Impact. Can he get the kill? He can, but his mid laner is traded back on the side. Darkwing's chasing after Castle. Castle tries to slice over the wall, but fails it. Went too early. Can't get through. Gets knocked down. Now Darkwing's with the Rise. I'll try to get in onto Sajet. Flash for flash. There's the hook, but can he even win the fight? The tower shot not not enough to knock him down because in comes the Seraphine to keep him safe.
What a fight there by Sentinels. Narrowly, if they get one more kill, they might be able to end the game off that. So in terms of what they can do with the Baron, they cash in towards the end. But you do have to eventually kill the Kaisa. That's the ticking time bomb for DSG in this game. I'd say Crier's gone a little too deep a couple times in this game. Him getting one shot really emboldened Sentinels to fly through right here. Nice use of the egg, though, and the wall right beforehand to make it difficult for them to pile through. Allow Sajed to kill Impact's Gnar during the fight. And then a Castle panicking a little. I'd say if he waits another quarter second to E over the wall, it's probably just a 3 for 3, but it ends up being a big win for Sentinels and a very emotional Golden Glue, I'd say, throughout this whole series.
Oh yeah, he's looking stressed, feeling the pressure for sure. Wants to be able to have a successful playoff run here, of course, coming over from that 100 Thieves squad last year, where they surprised a lot of people, you know, had a lot of success. Really was kind of like a heartwarming story, you know, to see this team kind of outperform a lot of expectations. Then, of course, the team exits the league, Sentinels comes in, Golden Glue moves over to that organization, and really hoping to have some big success here with that squad. But to your earlier point, I agree. It feels like Kryra is oversending it. It did happen a couple times when he was playing Pantheon and last week against Lions, against Lion, but wasn't really punished for it that much. This time, a couple times, has been a bit over anxious. I feel like they could have just waited out the Baron and then fought after, but instead he saw an angle, went in, and the CC timing from Sentinels has been so good. He's getting insta-CC'd as he arrives on the Pantheon ult every time. Might
see a fight here, but probably just giving up the turret, hoping for a Mountain Soul fight. Also have shield reduction purchased by Kryra. It's not going to help his tankiness at all, but the Serpent's Fang, if they're just trying to kill whoever's in front with how powerful Seraphine is now.
I mean, I keep touching on it, but Blitz is on one item, and the 2K support gold lead actually means so much because it's a scaling enchanter. He has 3 items to 1 completed item for Lions.
And a fully completed tier as well. Diadem of Songs is completely completed. Echoes, I also think, is just a broken item when you're able to get rolling in these team fights. So they just have to give this Drake no matter what.
Is going to be the Dragon going over. DSG, of course, it was sitting at Soul Point from that earlier trade of Dragon for Baron, but their attempt at Soul will be delayed. Ash Arrow comes out. Rahel has been wide on most of these, and good sidesteps by DSG to avoid them. And Lions going to have to see if he can find a way to get an impactful fight, you know, try to get a carry.
Fight.
Yeah, DSG are posturing. Kryra moving forward here. Sajed on the side with him, but they are split up, and Calmy's going to be flashed on there by Hambach, and in comes the Encore. The CC is punishing, and in the backline, Impact is sunning up the entire team. They are locked down. They are knocked down. It's a triple already for Darkwings, as he is just destroying them in this fight. Impact picks up another. It was nearly a quadra. Calmy TP's out to safety, but there is nowhere to run, nowhere to hide from the Sentinels team.
Darkwings just overpowers DSG in this last fight. He also empowering everyone with the massive support gap in this game too. It's looking like Sentinels is equalizing the series.
Yeah, they are marching on the Nexus. Calmy gonna get rooted up, gonna get locked down. The CC chains just never end. Huhi with a fantastic Seraphine game, showing off the power of the pick, and Sentinels coordinating so well on their timing with the CC across multiple fights. They tie up the series. A great bounce back after a real... The first 2 games, Ori's gone, Ryze is gone. You know, some of these picks that are quite popular are being taken off the table. Of course, you know, he still has Victor, Talia, Cassio, things like that. So there are still a lot of picks left.
Azir still not banned as well. Looking at Sentinels, appears to have first pick here.
They do, yes.
So that means DSG had selection. They decided to have last pick, and then Sentinels selected blue side, and they're going to then ban Azir.
So to me, it's either you ban Azir or you were going to play Yone or something, right? It's going to be one or the other. So in this case, they will just ban it out. And Yunar is up and available. It did get banned against Rahel last time, but it was phase 2, so not convinced that this would be their first pick. Wouldn't be surprised by something even like a Rumble, something kind of along those lines, or safe blind pick that is kind of pretty high prio for Impact. But they could just go towards the Yunar. People do really like it, and especially we're seeing a lot more Enchanter pairings again, like Lulu alongside it can be really, really strong. I mean, Huhi, I think, to me, he was the player of the game because, not necessarily because of like crazy mechanics or anything, but I felt like the power differential between him and the opposing support was the biggest out of anyone in the game.
Yeah, that was the most contested player of the game vote we've had this year.
Yep.
You voted Huhi.
Yep.
I voted Darkwings. Kobe voted Dark Wings.
Yep.
Emily and Raz voted Hambach.
They must be tried for their crimes in Twitch chat.
Well,
Twitch only gave Hambach 1% of the vote.
Well,
and who really knows who's the player of the game more than Twitch chat?
Was it Raz in Twitch chat typing Hambach just to juice it to 1%?
He brought it to 1%. Yeah. It was Raz.
Okay.
Ooh, Senna Nautilus.
Senna Nautilus. So going to be Senna carry, Nautilus support.
Or is it going to be farming Nautilus?
No way, man. You can't do that now. With all the gold injection and stuff, that would be crazy.
Some people really like the kind of like AP supportive style build for Senna these days. So I wouldn't be shocked. Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't be shocked, but we will see.
Would we ever see in Pro the role switch? So you'd still have Sajed playing Senna as the support, so they do the role trade.
I think you could totally do that, especially depending on level of comfort. It's like if you have to be able to pilot the ADC well. I think if you're gonna do that though, it would be an AD Senna. It wouldn't be the support style Senna, because I think how you position is kind of different in the fight. But it is going to be Yunara Rel, so they are going to have some pretty good engage over on this side. And Darkwing is going to go to one of his trusted picks, the Victor. So another control mage going to be grabbed up by him. 0 and 2 so far in the LCS though is the Victor pick. Of course, Rel can break shields, so really nice against both the Senna ulti as well as the Nautilus W. So that can be impactful at times.
Yeah, also, Kuhi mentioned he loves Rel queuing top laners TPing in. Just boom, 2,000 shield break right away.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, exactly. The roll quest gives you that kind of super stairs. It's funny because I talked about, oh, maybe you would leave the Azir up if you want to play Yone into it. Calmy's just going to do it into Victor, which is probably just an even easier matchup.
Probably even better.
Because Azir doesn't really have... You know, it's harder to get onto Azir, than it is to get on the Victor. Victor has a lot less mobility, so you can look to try to put some dive in onto them. And we'll see what they're going to draft alongside it. Obviously, divers can be great with Senna because you have that support from the Senna flying into the backline. If he is AD, you have the additional damage as well, not just that shielding. Yeah,
I love Senna when there's more people that can be in front of you to just get max efficiency out of RQ. So far, I've been a big fan of DSG's drafts. I was a big fan of the confidence of the Blitzcrank. It ended up that literally any other champion probably would have been better than the Blitzcrank in that specific game, but I still loved the confidence and the fear behind it.
It peaked in Champ Select.
It did. It really peaked in that moment.
Champ Select. Like, oh, Blitz, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the
35 minutes of, Blitz.
Which we had Seraphine right now. But they're going to be going back in on the Nautilus. And it will be fun, definitely. I like the draft so far from DSG, but there's a lot more consistent DPS over on the other side. So you are going to have to be really on point with your engages. You know, when you are thinking about the ability for a Senna and a Yone to put out DPS compared to that of a Victor and Yunara, it's not really too comparable. It's kind of all about that one shot. A couple bans going in towards Hambach as they're targeting a lot of these AD junglers that have already been taken out. Already 4 AD junglers have been played. Now they're going to be double banning some of those AD junglers as well as the Vi on the other side. So 7 AD junglers now taken out of the pool. There, of course, still are things like Lee Sin and some of the kind of less popular options, but everything that Hambach has played so far, the split is banned.
Yeah, and some big-time target bans flying out at Kryra as well with his Zac pick, which he's played in Tier 2, but the Ivern hasn't been done, so he's already dipping into his pool. This is one of the things he does. When you're talking about him kind of looking up to Inspired, like, part of that is also the other picks that Inspired would be able to pilot. Kryra has been able to pilot as well. I've been personally playing a good bit of Ivern in solo queue as well. He's in a very strong state. I don't know if this is the best spot for him just because they don't necessarily have high damage AD carry, and Ivern's a relatively low damage jungler, but it's very good with Yone for sure.
That's what I was going to say is a lot of the people really love melee pairing, some of the strong melee solo laners pairing with it. Wukong, one of those junglers that was kind of conspicuously absent from the pick ban, is going to be grabbed up. First time the Hambach will have played it this time around, and now Impact is going to have to blind his top laner. And it's going to just be Kennen, so he's just going to throw down the Kennen blind. Is a really powerful laner. The question is, does Castle have something cooked up as an answer into it? You have to kind of get a bit more spicy if you want to go for it. Oh, we're getting Nasus coming out. This is actually pretty hype. So I'm excited to see what the option is going to be from Castle. So sometimes against these ranged top laners, people think, oh, aren't you going to get bullied super hard as Nasus? You can actually do you know, a number of points in E, and you kind of just win out in the sustain.
Yes.
You actually just poke them down with the E. There are sometimes people who go like pseudo AP, or sometimes they just go AD, like they're just going Triforce, but they're going like 3 or 4 points E with Comet. There's a lot of different options you can go, and I will also say, I play a lot of Nasus, I think it's really fun. If you do not get slammed in the early levels by Kennen, Kennen stops hurting you.
Yeah.
Like, you get to like Merc Dreads, you get enough sustain
and
for
you
your
lifesteal
passive.
so much with the simplest passive in the game.
Yep.
We need more passive like this. You read it, lifesteal. Oh my God. I've read so many passive paragraphs, man, for these new champions. And the second part of the passive, you know, gobbledygook also applies with your blah,
Past
blah, blah.
15 minutes, you enter the third stage of the passive, which has a 17-hit passive that is activated when your opponent has an Infinity Edge.
The Nasus is so straightforward. I love it. Lifesteal. It's also a good pair with Ivern, for what it's worth. Because if Ivern ever lands a Q, Nasus can fly into melee range, smack you down with his cane.
You lack mobility. And the Ivern helps to bridge that gap. And he is playing Aerie, so it's not going to be Comet. Aerie can't miss. When you're playing specifically against Kennen, the Aerie can be better because if Kennen E's when you Comet, the Comet misses. So Aerie can't miss. So I am expecting at least a 3 points E. He is starting D-Ring. This is a pretty standard start. It's really good into a lot of range matchups. People think about Nasus as a weak laner, but I think they kind of fundamentally misunderstand the champion in some matchups. I don't expect him to be full AP. I personally think it's garbage unless the other team is like super squishy. But I do expect him to have a strong laning phase, and from there just go into standard Triforce stuff.
I really like DSG this year, man. Like, just the fact that they're already way better than they were last year, but that they're already pulling out these pocket picks so early in a best of 5. So we got Nasus top and Ivern jungle, which is just perfect. You've been playing a lot of Nasus. I've been playing a lot of Ivern.
This could be us.
Maybe we learn from the best.
This could be us if we wanted to lose horribly in this game on the LCS. Emily standing by with DSG's coach Ido. Let's talk about the picks.
I do want to talk about the picks because Raz and I were spitballing. We were like, okay, what are they going to pick to counter this Kennen? And the answer was Nasus. So talk to us a little bit about the confidence you have in Castle and just overall your team to be able to play out this comp.
Yeah, I think we got a lot of scaling, so it's pretty easy to scale. Anyone can do that. But when he said, you guys know what I have to pick here, when Kennen got locked in, and I said, no, I really don't. And then he said, Nasus, I look at him, we don't say anything. He says, dead ass. So then I say, all right, Nasus it is, that's fine.
All right, dead ass. We got Nasus. We'll see how Castle does. It should be actually a pretty good counter. The other thing I did want to ask is how the team was feeling. Obviously, you guys took a few risks in draft, specifically with the Blitzcrank in Game 2. Did end up taking the loss, so what did you tell them before going into this game?
Yeah, we just had a lot of unfortunate things happen. We're not really too caught up on last game. I think we should still keep looking for the fights that we want to take. Even with this comp, like, we aren't really that great at fighting early, but that doesn't mean we should roll over and give everything over. So just making sure that we're still confident in what we think is a good fight, what looks like a good fight, give what we have to give, and not really thinking too much about last game.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. We'll throw it back to you guys at the cast.
As Call Me looking to try to get aggressive here on a Dark Wings with Kryra. He had been getting bullied pretty hard in this 1v1, so Kryra, you have that super fast clear on the Ivern, and these drive-by ganks are great.
Yeah, absolutely. Only using one smite, still full clears his jungler, 6 camps in the time that it takes Hambach to kill 5. So that allows him time to have one free turn. Since there was such insane bot prio from Sentinels, he knows he's going to end up taking top crab, gets a gank in the meantime, really helps Call Me a lot in that lane, and then still manages to get his own crab.
Huhi is baiting them. Hambach was behind him, and Huhi was walking forward, pretending he did not know that he could get engaged on. Lions hooks in, so he does lose his flash for the exchange. It does mean Hambach has a pretty delayed base, though, and now Hui's going to flash in. Lions has no flash, so Jed trying to keep him alive, but he's not going to be able to do it. You have to think Hambach gets the kill. Kryra has arrived. Can they chase them down and get something back? It doesn't look like they can. And Lions falls for first blood. Hambach picks it up.
Huhi playing very well these last 2 games. Context switching as well between the Seraphine and the Rel right there. Having the flashless Nautilus for the re-engage in what was a 2v3. I think DSG wanted to kind of keep it interesting since Kryra was deploying out the bot lane, and they thought maybe they'd be able to bait it, but he ends up getting that turnaround earlier. So the beginning of this play, has the flash being burned, and DSG actually, this is great, right? Hambach's recall is going to be greatly delayed, but then with Ivern in the bush, they're thinking that they should stick around, and Huhi just does a really fast play to end up getting the kill onto Lions.
I mean, I think it would have been huge for DSG. I think Lions just way overplayed his hand, right? You know, Ivern is not there yet. When you're moving forward into that brush, Ivern's still halfway down the lane. If you wait 5 seconds and then you walk up and you get flashed on, and Ivern shields you, yeah, you win. You stomp that. So not a great game 1 from Lions, and I think a pretty big misstep there in game 2. And we'll see how he's going to be able to do going forward. Castle, so far, does have 3 points E as expected and is going to be working towards the Merc Dreads. That's also very expected. And I think he's going to be sitting pretty. I mean, you outscale the Kennen hilariously hard in the side lane, and he's almost level 6. And generally on Nasus, if you get to level 6 without dying, you are feeling really comfortable.
Yeah, I love the story from Ido as well. That's how draft works for a lot of teams as well. You do a trust fall with your players a lot of the time as some big damage goes down onto Rahel.
Rahel, incredibly low. Sajed elects not to flash for it because there was still the barrier available on Rahel, so didn't want to overcommit and die on anything silly. Hambach in the area, so Rahel has that barrier, going to try to barrier bait potentially, see if they can get them to go for an aggressive play again, but this time DSG not going for it just yet. Lions does drop that vision ward in the river, and will be able to keep themselves safe as Kryra is clearing down. We'll see if Kryra wants to come give a little bit of reinforcements down here on this bot side. As you can see, Hambach's going to go back to base, knows he cannot contest the scuttle.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they keep Rahel low like this, it could be a good timing to start Drake as the Ivern team. They have mid-prio, they have perma bot prio, and they'd want to get that Drake stack starting. Ivern definitely a slow Drake taker, but he can still take it solo, so looks like he's just going to be able to pick this up, likely uncontested.
Yep, should be able to grab that. And all this scrapping on the bot side, something that sometimes kind of goes a little bit ignored is that it's really nice for Senna because you're grabbing a lot of souls. So already 20 souls here, 6 minutes in, is going to be a pretty nice pace for Sajed, especially when you're playing AD carry on Senna. It's a lot harder to get the souls than it is on support where you're kind of just doing nothing but harassing. So Sajed doing a very good job with that. And they're off to a great start. Also always nice when you can come and reinforce the jungler on some of these dragon takes and various camps because you get a nice injection of souls there too, picks up 2.
Yeah, first Nasus top since 2017 summer by Someday. And as Castle said, you know, to him, he had to do it in this situation once the Kennen was locked in. But to pick it with the Ivern actually does make a lot of sense. I do completely agree. If he's able to lane this well, I don't think he's going to have that big a problem with teamfight access based off of having this Ivern. He might even look for an all-in here.
Yeah, we'll see if he's going to go for it. He does have the Ghost, so Impact has to be very careful. If you ever waste your E, especially because Impact is not playing Phase Rush, he took Ares, so he's trying to actually contest the lane. If you waste your E, you can easily get Withered, Ghost, pop ulti, and just run him down. I was a little surprised that Castle actually just playing it very defensively. I think he was nervous that Hambach was in the bush. Otherwise, I think he walks forward and just stacks the cannon, right? Because the cannons were so many stacks, but in that case, just used his E, wanted to play it safe. As Lions trading here with Huhi and Sajed able to help him out there. So the trade goes pretty DSG favored, now up to 26 stacks, and Hambach will have been revealed by that ward over on his Raptors. And so DSG should be well aware of where he is, as Calmy's just been kind of getting harassed constantly in this 1v1, but is up CS, so going to be pretty happy about how things are going.
They're looking to make a play on Kryra's blue buff here with the bot prio. You're going to get Kryra's ult out just to push him out of blue. Surprising teleport, actually, but it is just Huhi with Spellbook. Kryra would just love a little bit of time to channel on this blue, but we might see a brawl first.
Lions has level 6, so does Huhi. Will they actually send it? Daisy getting focused down. It's going to go back in as Sajed going to get jumped on by Hambach, but Hambach does not connect. Now the ulti flashes forward. They're committing everything, but on these tankier members, can Kryra survive? No, he cannot. He goes down. Calmy trying to get over here and help them out, but he's zoned off there by Darkwings. Lion hooks to the wall, flashes out. Sentinels win the fight.
Nah, beautifully done right there by Hambach. Knows he has level 6. Getting the Daisy out early rather than mid-fight was the signal they needed to actually engage. So they slow play it with Huhi getting the reset, and then as soon as Daisy's down, it's just full send because they're actually going to be able to win that 3v3. So Hambach with the fortunate kill early to get the first one, and now with this second kill is starting to take control of the game.
Yeah, I mean, Sentinels showing off some of their experience here, you know, utilizing the pressure well. They have some of the most experienced players as far as playoff games are concerned in the league. You look at how many Impact has played, how many Huhi has played, and then over on the other side, the only one who previous to this series had any playoff experience was Lions. The other four, it was all their very first playoff games. Of course, same is true for Hanbok and Darkwings, and, you know, Rahel didn't have a ton, but Sentinels has some really veteran players over on that side, and that can be something that can really help you when you come into some of these higher pressure matches.
Yeah, Huhi especially coming up clutch with these engages so far in this game. I want to talk quickly about the Ivern as well, though. Just, I think correct runes right here. Glacial Augment, as well as Resolve secondary for the extra heal and shielding. He's got the cashback as well, since your items, you build so many of them, you end up getting to like your 3 and 4 item power spikes very quickly, since you're kind of building all support items. And he's probably starting with the Redemption as well, which I think is pretty strong when you can affect the map from kind of like pseudo-global. Cryer's been playing the Pantheon Nocturne. Just throwing a Redemption down from the jungle can have a similar effect on a lot of skirmishes.
Yeah, it can be really strong for sure. Castle, kind of as I expected, did just go the 3 points E and then in towards the Q-Max, so he's just going to be going for that Triforce after pit stopping for the Merc Treads. Doesn't have the craziest amount of stacks yet, but it's not the easiest to lane as Nasus in the early levels, and of course as you get more points in the queue, you pick up more CDR, it gets faster and faster and faster, and you can really start to accelerate. So we'll see how he can actually perform. The trick with Nasus is always, can you actually connect on your targets later on in the game? We know Nasus is always a beast in the side lane, but there is a lot of disruption. There is a lot of CC. You know, there's the W from Victor. There's, you know, the stuns that are going to be coming out, and the knockups from the Wukong, from the Kennen, from the Rel. There's a lot of kind of annoying things. But that being said, even if you just kind of get down your Wither on Rahel, that is such a significant DPS loss for Yunara, who is pretty much purely auto-attack based.
Yeah. I think a lot of this game is going to come down to whether or not Sentinels lands clean engages, because they have really powerful tools with the Rel, Wukong, Kennen, not to mention the ever-expanding Victor ultimate if they can get the one-shot, because the Ivern and the Senna are never going to be that tanky. So those are the targets that they're really going to be wanting to try and one-shot. I do think the scaling is in favor of DSG, especially if those players can stay safe.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it's a pretty good start in the game for Sentinels.
No, it's true. It's a really good question, right? You know, and that makes the engages so important, because if you can get back onto those guys and knock them down, that's fantastic. But if you full send it and you are going through the Yone, through the Nasus, and you don't insta-kill them, well, that's going to be tough. And that is going to be what they're having to deal with here. As you can see, the role quest complete there for Castle, who pretty much doesn't care about anything Impact does anymore at this point. Really the only limiting factor, and this is kind of one of the weak points of these kind of Emax builds, is you spend a lot of mana. So Castle sometimes is just going to run out of mana. He's going to have to base and push that out. And that can be one of the difficulties.
A little surprising, though, the Castle immediately teleports back to top lane, so Impact now has TP advantage, and that means that DSG has to concede this second Drake. It is a Cloud. It is going to be traded for some camps on the other side of the map, so I think overall DSG is okay with that. But when you have the Redemption completed on Ivern, that's one of your bigger power spikes. I think it's just the fact that Wukong is on Triforce, and that's a big way to lose the game as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, Castle also really getting Impact quite low. Impact's going to be able to TP back towards that top side because now they have already secured that dragon. But it is always scary, you know, if they decided to TP down the Kennen and you don't get an incredible fight, Nasus pops ult and kills your tower, right? And that is something that you always have to worry about, the amount of damage Nasus can get done in the side lane. So Castle now feeling really good, up 400 gold on a champion that pretty heavily outscales. Going to be close to his Triforce and has that supporting cast that will help him, not just the Ivern, but also the Senna heals and shields. So it's going to be pretty powerful, you have to think, this game. Darkwing's been doing a good job just harassing Call Me, but it's never really turned into anything more than just kind of a bit of annoyance.
Yeah, I mean, if we're seeing Nasus Ivern in Game 3 of Fearless, I really hope this goes 5. I don't know what DSG would have left in terms of the end of the Fearless series.
Cassante Ornn, Game 5.
Yeah, Cassante jungle, Ornn top, let's go. Oh, we decided to unban Azir. You get that too.
And we can bring up the Corki. Yeah, but no, I agree. I mean, it's fun. And Castle's always been one of those players. I've talked to him a little bit about picks in the past, and he loves solo queue data. You know, some players think, win rates mean nothing in solo queue. Some players are saying, ignore it, it doesn't matter at all. I play what feels good. Castle loves going and looking at the data and seeing what the niche items and counter picks are, and he loves prepping that stuff. I think he's really into it. So he believes a lot in that. And so it would not surprise me to know if statistically this is one of the better counter matchups. And it's cool to have players that have the confidence to bring this stuff out, because I do think it's underexplored. And I think combat summoners as well are pretty underexplored as far as top lane this season. We got to see Photon doing it a little bit, bringing out the Ignite Kennen, the Ignite Renekton, I believe it was, another game. And so he's done a couple different things, which is kind of fun to watch.
Very cool. 273 on the NASA stacks so far. We got only 42 on the Senna. It's become a little bit less spicy of a lane since they started losing. And Huhi's up here.
Yeah, Huhi can be a bit annoying, but not enough damage, obviously, to take him down. I mean, if you fully commit there, he is just going to heal up. You can also see Impact is going in towards Gunblade, because he knows if you don't have some sustain, he's just going to slowly lose the side lane very heavily to the Nasus. So his option is, all right, I go Gunblade. That is a trade-off, though. There's not like there's no cost to that, because you're not as powerful in team fights, I feel, as we're going to see Hambak going in on Call Me. Gets a nice little chip of damage, but Darkwings hadn't quite arrived with the TP, so just going to take that chunk of damage and be happy with it.
Some Ivern side effects as well, just the easy double buffs on the mid laner this early on into the game from the buff sharing passive. Also going to be annoying for Darkwings to deal with, since he was winning that lane against Call Me a little bit. Doesn't seem like he is anymore. But I'd say that Kryra is definitely in a defensive jungling pattern right now, especially after losing that blue buff fight about 7 minutes ago to Hambak. So staying out of the river, really just trying to keep his camps on cooldown and waiting until they hit a few more power spikes. They know they have the scaling here. For as exciting as Nasus, Ivern are to us for the novelty, I think they are equally as boring in terms of their play pattern.
Yeah, they definitely can be. And I mean, you're playing Nasus Senna, two champions with infinite scaling, right? So
true.
If the game goes slow, you're fine with that. The question is always, do you have target access? Because in theory, you can get 10,000 stacks on Nasus and then never hit anyone die, right? It's unlikely, of course. But there's still a lot of scaling power on the other side, too. Yunara, Victor, really powerful carries in those late game stages, and lots of CC and disruption here for the Yone as well as for the Nasus. And Sentinels slowly building up this gold lead. And yeah, it's great. You can scale, you can stack, but if you fall too far behind, it's not really going to matter. And it is closing in on that 2,000 gold lead. Is Call Me getting a pretty nice trade here. The barrier is going to get popped. He actually committed to it, and the Redemption almost finished him off. And now the Senna ult just knocks him down. Rahel did not react, did not flash out. And what I thought was going to be a quick little trade ends up being a kill. And now Castle going to pop the ulti here. Will he goes for it? Not just yet. Hambak coming in now, going to pop the ghost here, but he is in the 1v2. Can he make it happen? I don't know that he's going to have the damage, but he is getting Impact quite low, slowing him down. One more Q might do it, but he doesn't get there to finish the job. Impact barely survives. Hambak bails him out, and they get a kill on the Nasus.
Oh man, that was almost such a positive play for DSG, but Hambak is there for when Castle gets bored. He could have just continued to queue the minions, but he thought that was
Jungle
a time
diff.
to go in.
Nothing I could do.
No eyes on the Wukong whatsoever, so Hambak in a position to carry this game right now. 3-0-0 on the Wukong. Watching this one more time, though, you could see Rahel was feeling very confident because they kind of had Call Me in this 1v2, but then when Huhi gets pushed out, he goes for a powerful trade. And here's these pseudo-globals, right? The Redemption at first. I think he thought he was far enough.
Oh, he tried to RE. He died on the R cast. He tried to RE. That's what happened. So
yeah, his R's on cooldown now.
Yeah, so he tried to actually RE there, so that's why he didn't flash. He thought he had the time to do it, but now they're actually catching Hambak. If he goes down, that would be punishing, as he has a big bounty. Huhi gonna flash over the wall with Hambak, but can they continue the chase? I think they can. Now the TP coming in there from behind.
The long
as
fight.
Nasus is gonna be behind them. They're gonna try to use the Rift Herald maybe to get out of dodge, but there's the route over on Hambak. Hambak getting focused down. Castle almost knocks down Huhi, but he's gonna get CC'd up. Wukong gets into the Herald. Can all of them get out? It looks like they just might be able to do it. They're trying to finish off with a smite, but they couldn't. And Sentinels get away with no health. I can't believe DSG killed no one.
It ends up being a really good trade because they got plates on the mid lane as well. Sure, it costs the Herald and they get some counter jungling.
Oh, good sidestep.
Okay, he has Redemption.
Very low.
He shortcasts the Redemption. And Hambak gets out.
Yeah, it's a tough skill shot to hit there. That Redemption didn't actually land it. He misplaced it pretty badly. He just needed to put it behind him and try to force him into him. Call Me in some trouble on the side. Will be forced to use his ult defensively as the double solo laners here from Sentinels going to be pushing up, but at the same time, Castle farming some plates on top side, so Call Me pushed back to base. You have to feel like they probably could have killed him, maybe with that redemption, but not going to be able to do it, unfortunately. And got to be a frustrating moment there for DSG. It looked like they were going to get 1 or 2 kills for sure. Instead, they get none.
And they're also not set up at this Drake again, so it's probably Infernal Drake going over to Sentinels. There's no redemption. They burned a lot of their summoners in that extended fight top lane. But call me thinking about going for Dark Wings. They'd be very late on this fight if they decide to engage on it.
Yeah, call me missing most of his abilities there, unfortunately. So is going to have to just kind of take the L on that trade. Once you get Blade of the Rain King, as well as these upgraded Berserker Greaves, it can be quite powerful. Let's watch this fight one more time. It looks like they had Sentinels cornered. Yeah,
so Castle's cutting off Huhi Darkwings, but then Lions and Kryra kind of commit to trying to finish off Hambach before he gets in the Herald. So once he's in the Herald, you're kind of not doing anything. I'd say if Sajed and Kryra had all in on the Victor Rel earlier, maybe they get one of those kills. And if they do a little bit more damage to the Herald, they could get this kill as well. The extra chase is the one that cost them, because I feel like if they deploy down for Drake now, maybe they can control it. But Kryra takes the plant over. Nice sidestep by Hambach. And then Kryra just doesn't place Redemption deeply enough. He could have cornered him most likely to get that kill. And deep breaths for Hambach, protecting that bounty on Wukong.
Yeah, I feel like if you just put the Redemption fully below, so like the top lip is just barely touching him, he can't walk down or he'll probably die to the Redemption. I mean, he basically has to flip it and say, I hope I don't die to the Redemption, because if you stop, you just get autoed to death because you have no health. So I do think that was a misplay from Kryra. Hambach opening up a pretty big lead here now, and is going to be happy about his position in the game. Call Me has been relatively quiet on the Yone, has been getting involved here and there. Sajed, though, up to 55 stacks, 432 for Castle. So this has really started to accelerate. He is getting to that frightening point where if he connects onto his targets, he's going to get a ton of damage. He's not going... Oh, he's not going for it. Rahel just flashed. That was a misclick. That was a misclick for sure, unfortunately, as Rahel now going to be minus splash, and they saw it, so they could full send it on him. But yeah, Castle not going Sundered Sky or anything crazy. He is going to be going in towards the Spirit Visage second, taking the more kind of moderate approach.
And also, he's up against 2 AP solo laners, so makes sense to just have a little bit of MR and really delay this game a bit through split pushing. It definitely feels like DSG has been making a few misplays, and Sentinels has been capitalizing, especially when Hambach has been in the right position. But even with all that, 1,000 gold and 1 Drake, I'm still feeling like the Senna Ivern Nasus probably has it. It's just hard to say, though, because we see these combinations of champions so infrequently in pro play. So if the coordination of Sentinels hard engages can just one-shot the Ivern and the Senna before the fight extends, it's not going to matter. But it just feels like with the Locket from the Nautilus and just a little bit of burst protection, if you can get through to the first redemption and the Ivern shields and the Senna heals start kicking, it feels like they're just going to be this unstoppable machine later in the game.
There's one of these other things that people obviously think about the Wither a lot, but there's a lot of armor shred on the Nasus E, and then there's Black Cleaver armor shred, and your triple physical damage carries, right? You have Senna, you have Yone, you have Nasus. So there's going to be, you know, a lot of reduced armor, which actually is quite impactful here. They are going to be pummeling some of these carries if everything is on them and they're looking for it. In fact, great sidestep there. On the hook from Lions as he was laying in wait, but all of Sentinels are here. All 5 members. Call Me going to try to ult out. In comes the Redemption as well as that Senna shield trying to keep him up. Lions flashing back with the locket, but he's getting knocked down. And there is another kill going their way. The TP arrives, but Castle is just getting focused down. He's in the middle of the entire team. He can't get anything done. Trying to take Hambach with him, but won't be able to do it. 3 for 0 for Sentinels there. How much more can they get off of this?
They're getting a lot. That was a beautiful play there by Sentinels. The first sign that something was amiss was both solo laners just walking up the bottom lane together. Then Huhi Hambach get the perfect flank. And DSG, I think, tries to salvage a play that wasn't salvageable. Senna's so far away. Call Me burns everything. And then by the time Castle gets here, he is 1v5. Sure, the Senna, Ivern want to help, but if they step too close, they end up getting engaged on. So all the tempo has been in the favor of Sentinels this game, and they're the ones making the plays to turn the game in their favor.
Yeah, nicely done. You could also see that Rel interaction. Shattering Strike on the Ivern shield instantly on Call Me. Broke that very quickly. As Lions gonna have to hook back to the tower. Sajed taking some damage there from Rahel. They do have a lot of sustain. I mean, you saw it looked like Call Me was going to get one shot, but then Redemption landed, Locket came out, Senna's shield. You know, all of these heals came through, but was not enough. They were not putting any damage back on the other side. And then it's like Nasus arrives, 500 stacks, great, but CC. Not going to be able to actually get enough Qs out to really do anything. And now Sentinels feels like they are running away with it, posed to grab this next dragon.
And the fact that the Yone and the Nautilus were gone pretty much before the fight started, then all the Sentinels cooldowns are going to be cycling back. So for as much as we've talked about the potential scaling of DSG, if they're not finding any 5v5 windows, and Sentinels is always the one striking first and always has a number advantage, they're going to win the game. So this is the most organized I've actually seen it. 3 seconds before Infernal, maybe getting a 5v5.
Oh, big hook onto Rahel. He pops the R, dashes back. Can they get in on him? They're happy to just let the ulti expire. So they force that out of Rahel, and they know he has no flash for a while. So I think DSG is going to try to contest potentially, but it looks like they might just be too slow. There's the route in onto Huhi. Huhi's going to get one shot. The shutdown comes through, but will the fight be won? Impact is getting so much damage down. Castle trying to survive. Gets in on Rahel, but he can't finish him off. Call Me trying to make something happen, but he misses on the Q3. Hombach flashes out, and now it's just Kryra and Sajet, and that is Victor from Arcane. That Arcane Storm was massive as Sentinels survive and win the fight, even without the flash or the ulti on Rahel.
That might have been the last chance for DSG. They finally got their 5v5, but they were probably just a little bit too far behind, and the executes and the empowered Victor ultimate just continued. So yes, they killed Huhi on the backside, but let's think, like, Sajet doesn't do that much damage at this stage of the game. You can see Kryra and Call Me have to kind of both flash out of this, so it's like a Senna who's zoned by Impact and Castle who's in the middle of 4 people isn't enough to get it done, as Victor and even an altless Yunara are free hitting. It's just too much damage.
Yep, just too much damage. When you fall this far behind as these comps that are reliant on heals and shields, often you don't get enough rounds of them out to actually make anything happen. You just kind of end up having these situations where they're just getting burst through. You can see the Hex Optics C44 is done now for the Senna. So it does have the additional damage based on range, which is obviously great for Senna because you get all the stacks, which increases your range. So you're almost always getting the maximum bonus from that. And Sajet was hurting Impact to be sure, but it's just been tough. I mean, Castle has been kind of like very slowly winning in the side lane. He took down the top tower, took down the bottom tower, but he's never been actually threatening tier 2s. He's never been able to make anything happen in the 5v5s. Impact is just kind of going in, throwing down the ults, CCing them up, and everyone kind of focuses down the Nasus before he can do much.
Yeah, not to mention the Serpent's Fang is clutch for Hombach. He's had such a good game, from the original kill that he found bottom lane to the invade he did on the blue buff, and now because he has some gold to burn, normally a Serpent's Fang on Wukong this late in the build would make you too squishy, but because he's so accelerated, I think it just allows him to continue to snowball. And in terms of, like, we have heal cut items and shield cut items, to me Serpent's Fang is just the most broken of them all. Like, not only does it reduce the shields by 50%, it will then reduce other shields that get applied by 50%. So it's the best of all worlds in terms of cutting down the shielding that's going to be coming from Nautilus, from Ivern, from Senna ult. It really empowers their team fighting.
I mean, Hombach's on 3 items. You look over at Call Me, he's on 2, right? He's not even close, as TPs are going to be coming in here to reinforce. Nasus will arrive, as will Call Me. So that's double TP spent now. Feels like DSG is going to have to get something, otherwise Impact's just going to go set up in the side lane. I mean, they did get the ult out of Rahel, they got the TP out of Dark Wings, but now it is TP advantage for Sentinels. So Impact can go and look to set up a push in the side lane if he wants, but right now he's considering, can I find an angle for an ulti here? As Huhi thinking about going, has his flash available. Hombach may have been caught out on the side.
There's no flash.
He's going to be able to clone back. He gets rooted up. Can they actually finish him off? Castle is in there. He's going to try to turn it around, try to finish off Kryra. Kryra's incredibly low. Can he actually survive? In comes the Senna ulti. They do get the kill. Call Me, though, getting focused down on the side. Sajet is not even involved in the fight. Now he's going to arrive as Castle's going forward with the ulti. Does throw the Wither down onto Dark Wings. Call Me tries to go back in. Sajet goes forward. There's the flash hook, and it's a massive shutdown. Castle gets it. Finally, DSG come up with a huge pick, and they're going to get Baron very likely off the back of this as well.
I think this is the solo queue slingshot. They're going to be even in gold after this Baron. It all starts with Hombach, no flash. So they see one window, they just all commit to him, burn everything to try and get this Wukong, because if they don't get burst, that's when the heals and shields can really start turning on. Getting that shutdown at the start of the fight means there's not enough damage to one-shot the big Nasus, who then sits in the middle of the team.
And watch this flash hook from Lions. They know they need to catch him. Flash barely tags him with the lollipop on the hook. Gets the shutdown for Nasus. They get those kills. That is critical. And Golden Glue knows this game, they slowly built up the lead more and more and more and more. They were in a position where it felt like, okay, you're finally in control. That has given such an injection of gold for DSG. Out of nowhere, there's the IE done for Sajed. He's now ahead. There's a third item completed for Castle. And even the GA is going to be coming soon for Call Me.
Frozen Heart on Castle, who now has a gold lead on Impact. And the 4-item Senna with soon-to-be 80 souls is turned on. This Infernal Soul fight in 50 more seconds is suddenly game deciding. It had seemed over. That pick on Hambach, who played so well this entire game, might end up costing them. And the series might even swing on this next team fight. 1-1, winner goes 2-1 up. It felt like all the momentum was in the side of Sentinels, but DSG might have just pulled it back.
Impact does get the tier 2 top, though, and he has the TP advantage, and Call Me doesn't see anyone coming. He's way overpushed. Call Me's just going to die for free, it feels like. Are they even going to try to get out? Uses the ulti, flashes back. Goes into Soul Unbound, but who cares? You wasted your flash. You were always going to die there. Buys a little bit of time for them to get some damage down on this tier 2, but Sentinels played that well. Impact didn't even use his TP. Took a tier 2 top. You're against the Baroned Up team. Now you're down a member, and you're probably just lost Soul off that.
Down Yone, only down Wukong flash alt. Does GSG have enough strength to win a 4 versus 5? Impact pushing mid to get a flank angle, but if GSG goes fast, it might work.
I mean, Impact will be behind them. He's going to TP in. Are they going to try to turn on the TP? Can they time the route? They're going for it. They time it well. Can they burst him down? But he comes Hui flashing over the wall. Sajed trying to get some damage down. But everyone, DSG is just getting melted. Hui incredibly low, but the Dragon Soul has been secured. Sajed sent packing, and Castle cannot survive the damage from Rahel. Just like that, the pick on to Call Me may have thrown away this advantage that they got back. The Yone is down. DSG try to find a turn onto Impact, but they can't burst them down thanks to a great counter engage from Hui.
Absolutely crazy game. We're back. It's over. We're so back. It's so over. Right here, you think maybe they find the pick onto Impact, but Hui really delays any burst that would fall through onto Impact, and Hambach smartly just finishes the Soul. Says, you know, however chaotic it gets, the Soul is forever. Make sure they have that Infernal Soul, and all of this was just set up by a macro misplay by Call Me, over pushing the bot wave before the Infernal Soul fight. I think DSG might have been strong enough to turn the game. It is still winnable, but the thresholds, the burst thresholds now, with the Infernal Soul and the items that Rahel and Darkwings are building up, really puts Sentinels in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to get tough now. That Infernal Soul is a lot of extra damage. Again, we talk about thresholds a lot when you are playing these healing and shielding comps, these sustain style comps. If you can hit a certain threshold of damage, they can't get out to the second, the third rotation of shields and heals where those comps really start to become problematic. And now it just feels like with the Infernal Soul, with the gold lead again, they probably are just far beyond that. Call Me going to take a trade here with Impact and get smoked in that trade. This Yone has not really been able to find much of anything going on in this game. Has the empowered recall and completes the IE. So now he will have a lot of damage threat. Rahel getting chunked out pretty heavily there. Has to be careful. You still need to respect the range from Sajed, who is closing in on 100 stacks and is still on 4.5 items plus the boots.
Still a very strong Senna. That's going to be a problem the whole game unless Sentinels can get the one shot on it. So a very strange game, as we mentioned. We don't get to see much kind of late game Nasus Ivern. I'd say the Yone has been a disappointment in this team composition. It hasn't created that much pressure. It ends up getting picked off. We could be one fight away from the game as Hambach has a flank.
Hambach has a great flank in onto Lions. The TPs are going to come in to try to reinforce Sajed, try to get as much damage down as he can over onto Hui. Lion survives, and then ult comes through. In comes Call Me, trying to get Darkwings down. Has to snap back, though he's in a lot of trouble. They get the first kill, it's onto Hambach. And Castle, that's king. He's king of the castle. He's going forward here, trying to knock down Rahel. Rahel flashes back, but the last Q gets the shutdown. That's big man on campus. Castle gets the stacks to pay off. That Nasus hurts.
It's a game of inches. He lands the final auto as Rahel kills him as well. If they lose that fight, they could lose the game, and we're seeing an absolute barn burner right here. Lions lives through the initial engage, but then hooks back in to get killed by Hambach post-flash. But then you can see Sajed on the side, completely untouched this entire time. Impact tries to get the assassination, and this is the real story. Dog versus Victor and Yunara, and he takes down Rahel absolutely crazy game.
Yep, that is over 700 stacks now for Castle. That second Q that looked like it did nothing was through the barrier. The barrier just got deleted by it. He is so strong. And you even saw Rahel had, a canceled auto or two. It's very hard to not mess up in these late game fights when you are withered and you lose so much attack speed, plus the frozen heart. So all of a sudden, you are just hitting this attack speed aura where you're losing 20% from that. And then he has max wither now, so that's an additional 75% attack speed slow. And so all of a sudden, that just changes the math on these fights completely. And when so many tools were used before Castle arrived, those are the fights where Nasus can really excel.
I mean, we're in a one-fight game now. Even with the Soul, we can see it's possible for DSG to win fights. They kill Baron relatively fast as well, and Impact is on bot lane, so they might just try and force them in.
Yeah. They're going to try to get his TP at the very least. They see him on that ward, so they see him moving up now, and they're trying to hunt out for any sort of flank location. He's going to be TPing in to join the team. The Baron down to about half HP. Call me looking, does land the knock-up onto just Huhi.
Baron shred.
Gonna have to snap back, but they're looking to try to just finish this. Sen ult comes over the top. Look at Hombok. He's pushed out. Hombok can't join the fight, so they lose the Baron. There's the root over on Huhi. The hook is going to land on Darkwing. Darkwing's in a lot of trouble. The first kill goes the way of DSG. Here comes Castle. He's stunned up, but not for long. The CC is going to expire.
Oh my God.
So are Sentinels. It's a triple there for the Senna, and it's Castle crushing through the fight. The ace for DSG, and they just won the game.
When we talk about infinite scaling, apparently it's actually infinite scaling through the Infernal Soul. They just 5v5 start the Baron and then annihilate Sentinels to go up 2-1 in this series. Sajed in the end ends with 7 kills on the Senna, and they're going to go up 2-1 in the series, Azael.
Sajed and Castle, the scaling well and truly online. Nearly 800 stacks on the Nasus, nearly 120 on the Senna. A deathless game for Sajed and Castle, even with all that CC in the late game, they couldn't burst them down. Obviously, Impact has played a lot of and he is someone who can bring out a lot of these different picks, but the Jax slammed down by Castle. Castle did really well, I think, on the Nasus last game. I know the fan vote heavily favored him for player of the game. He was invincible later on into the game and handled the early lane quite well. So again, he's going to be the one who gets the answer. And you look over at this team and you think topside is scaling kind of to infinity with the Jax as well as the Mundo. My question is, what build will we get from Castle? Will we get kind of these AP variants that we're starting to get really popular, with the Emax AP, in Dusk and Dawn, or are we going to get more the old school AD style build? So I'll be excited to see where Castle takes us.
Yeah, I mean, as you were saying, he's always checking the win rates on the stats website, so we could you're going to pull that up potentially yourself, and then we'll be able to predict what he does in one of these games. But I do want to see if DSG can close out the series here. Winner will guarantee themselves top 3. Would be an absolute crazy turnaround for them. Would also mean Sentinels, if they're able to win the next 2, in their first really tournament in the LCS, not even a split, just LCS Lock In, being able to go international. So both these teams looking to make an early splash at the start of 2026 in LCS.
Going to be exciting. A lot of pressure on them. And yeah, you look at the data, it's a 54% plus winning matchup for Jax into Zehen.
Okay.
And at least in solo queue, it is mostly AD that we're getting in this specific matchup. So we'll see where he wants to go. And it is Grasp, so I think it's going to be AD. Not playing Phase Rush or anything like that. But should be exciting to see this one coming out. Call Me, I don't think had a great game last game on the Yone. Was able to find some effect later on. But I also feel like Lions has had a kind of uncharacteristically weak series. I feel like he's been having a good split, but hasn't really been able to find a lot of success. I mean, obviously, notably in the Blitz game, but also on the Nautilus, I don't think he was having his best performance. And Castle is just going to be in here on Hombok, harassing him. I actually love this. We'll see, though, what the cost is top lane. I really want to see the minions top, see if he actually misses any experience, because Hombok very quickly just moved down. Impact is going to try to get between him and try to zone him off some of his XP, but it feels like Castle has this timed out really well.
Yeah.
He's not going to get the gold, likely. So he misses 2 minions of gold, but he does get the XP.
Yeah, so seemingly no cost for him so far. We'll change the recall, we'll change the timing of Hombok's camps, but also kind of eliminates any funny business he'd be able to do. Also, since he's going back to his blue buff and is completely on a ward, it allows the mid lane and the bot lane to play as aggressively as they want early on in the game, not worry about any cheese. And Castle just, doing a solid for his jungler early on in the game, but they hit level 2.
Oh, yeah, so Jed didn't want to flash it, but then he fused Cleanse and Flash. They were losing the level 2 rush. And that is pretty punishing. Sajed could have maybe just retreated a little bit earlier. They clearly thought they could contest for level 2, but then Huhi just knows his limits, pushes forward. Castle having a nice trade there. And now Sajed in some trouble again, but Huhi taking a ton of damage. Huhi might just die. Lion's going to try to flash forward and finish him off. One more auto won't do it because of the early potion pop. He can't finish him off. That was close, though. And now the sustain is going to start really mattering here for DSG. We'll see if they can stabilize and get ahead.
And the wave's pushing away from Rahel, so Sajed might be able to push in on Huhi. Biscuits are insane. It's healing faster than the auto attacks from Nami. Otherwise, that would have been first blood over to DSG. So still 4 summoners down on the side of DSG. If Rahel can keep the wave here and Vi could eventually path over, it could be huge. But considering the delay that happened to Hambach early, he's probably unable to pull that off. So full, taking in the big picture, DSG almost prevented a possible bad play bot with the early invade from Castle.
Yep, nicely done. Here we have it one more time.
Yeah, so Huhi just takes so much damage by going in there, but pops the early Biscuit and health potion, has them both running.
Well, we got to go back to live as Call Me looking like he is probably dead to rights. Nice flash, though, and now the charm connects. Kryra arrives here. Can they get something more? Darkwing's being put low, but Huhi there to body block. In comes Hambach, and now it's Kryra's turn to try to body block as he has the passive ready. So much ado about nothing. No one will go down, but Sentinels trying to continue their push forward. They want to be able to fight for this scuttle as Kryra quickly clears out the ward.
And Kryra really wants to double crab. He still has smite, but the inside track is there from Impact.
And he's here first. I mean, this is really risky, but they do have the Ahri coming in. They're going to fight for this. It's grabbed there by Hambach. Castle, is he going to go over the wall? Lands the stun onto Impact, and Impact flash the wall. He does. Hambach will get pushed out. Kryra not going to be able to get anything more. At least they get the summoner off of Impact.
I mean, Kryra still hasn't based, neither has Hambach. Huhi stuck around. They can potentially punish this with the Leona.
Going to be able to land the stun, and now comes Darkwings, and Kryra has no passive. Kryra might just be dead. Even if you flash, I don't think you're getting out of this one. That's first blood going to Hambach again. Even with that great start that they had, Kryra feels like kind of got a bit too aggressive, gets punished pretty heavily.
Feels a little bit like that Pantheon game really tried to push the early game power on Mundo, which normally doesn't happen, but because they delayed early, he thought he could double crab, misses the smite there, and all credit actually to Huhi, sticking around, waiting in the bush, getting the surprise re-engage onto Kryra's Mundo, and Hambach again with first blood.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, like I said, Huhi, I feel like has been fantastic, has been outperforming. Yeah. Again, he makes a roam, makes a difference, right? Goes through mid lane, gets a good chunk. They can't kill Call Me, but he says, you know what? I'm still full HP. I'm just going to stay.
Yeah.
And makes the difference in the fight as well. Down on the bot side, he's still actually even ahead in experience over Lions. So Huhi, Mr. Worldwide, has been making it happen and has been, I think, a really big reason that Sentinels has been as good as they are. I just feel like this guy is consistently finding really strong engages. Feels like he's really happy with the team and performing well.
He is. He's always spoken really highly of the team whenever we've had him on interviews as well as on the Sentinels podcast. He loves playing with Hambach, thinks he's got a lot of potential. Doing him a solid in a lot of these early games as well. Hambach playing with Huhi, that support jungle synergy already getting pretty strong between the two of them.
Yep, looking good. And I mean, Huhi, we touched on it, but he's had a lot of great engages. He's been fantastic on these engage champs. When I think back to last week, he was finding engage after engage. In this big win that they actually had against TL, I think he was a huge reason for it. Constantly, it felt like he was the one finding LYON on these flanks in the Nico game. Then also in this Rakan game, he came out of the side brush, had a beautiful engage across multiple members, from TL. That was a big upset win. When we looked at the preseason rankings, we had TL as the aggregate #1, and they fell to the lower bracket in playoffs, thanks in part to Sentinels, who put them there.
It's really been a crazy LCS Lock In tournament when you think about it. LYON and Team Liquid both sitting down in the lower bracket, meaning only one of them can actually make top 3. They're going to have to, even if they win their first lower bracket match, they both have to win in order to face each other just to make it into top 3. So a lot of fun League of Legends coming up in the LCS. We got Saturday, Sunday this week, and then the last 2 weeks are Friday, Saturday, Sunday to conclude these playoffs.
Oh, he's going to get caged in. Hambach is here. There's the Q. Can he get out? It doesn't look like it. Great CC chain from Hambach and Darkwings. The cage sets it all up, and Hambach knocks him down. Huhi now on the bot side. Zenith Blade follows him, which drags him along the Valkyrie, which does a surprising amount of damage, actually.
Credit to Darkwings, though, just landing the cage stun with no assistance, making it very easy for Hambach to come in.
He's built like that.
And get this 2-0. You play enough Veigar.
Walks up, presses E.
I mean, let's see. Calmy was just...
Boom.
He thought with the extra boost he'd get from his W. And then Hambach just immediately punishes, which is very smart. It's weird. Hambach's 2-0, but I feel like this has all been set up. The first one, Huhi. The second one from Darkwings.
Golden Glue looks so stressed. My poor man.
Why are you so stressed, man? Your team is already exceeding expectations.
He wants more. He's greedy. Wants that success that he knows they can have. I mean, it's always tough as the Ahri, right? Because it's like, you could be like, oh, you should have flashed that. You should have ulted that. But when he walked up to the cage, he didn't have vision of the vibe. So you can't just, react too heavily anytime he does press it. As Castle goes for a nice little trade there, as Impact just retreating back. Playing all right in this 1v1, but is down 20 CS already. And Castle
definitely seems to have an edge in this matchup. He's been early invading, getting tempo, going for blue buff. Hasn't really gotten anything over the top, but he's maybe going to have side lane pressure on Impact the whole time. Trying to think about why Golden Glue would be so stressed. I do feel a little bit like there's still that feeling, as Castle's just burning his ult to get the wave in, that DSG is this last place team from last year. And Kryra mentioned this in the interview as well, just like, oh, the people who put us last, they don't watch us, they're new and they're DSG, so they must be bad. But I do feel like even when we were making predictions, like this week, we both said DSG is probably going to win the series. It still didn't quite feel right because they lost so much last year.
I would also say, I can understand Golden Glue feeling like, hey, we have to really win this, as Calmy might be in some trouble, but...
Doesn't have ult yet.
Oh, he gets stunned by the cage, Flashes, ults. Wow. Didn't want to use the flash or the ult early, ends up having to use both, but think about it from this perspective. Golden Glue basically got to have his pick of the litter. He took the players from DSG. DSG then took the quote-unquote backup players, from Tier 2. And if you lose to that team, doesn't it just mean that DSG did a better job kind of building their team? So maybe you're feeling stressed from that angle, right? Of like, we got to pick over their team, take all the players we wanted from their team, and now we might lose to the team we stole all the players from.
Good point. Twice, because they lost to them in week 1 as well.
As third Grub going to be going over the way of Hambach, but that does mean he used his smite, so Kryra doesn't know if he has another charge or not, and Hambach will be sent packing, pushed back. So, yeah, I think it adds a lot of stress there, but Rahel taking a ton of damage down on the bot side, does still have the barrier, and Huhi has the spellbook heal, so not an easy dive or anything crazy like that. Darkwings, though, is going to be happy scaling up. Looks like 97 stacks on that passive already, so he is scaling quite well on the Veigar and is going for that Roa, so kind of a full scaling style build. It's always interesting when people get into the death cap on this because, death cap obviously so much value on Veigar because it is amplifying your passive stacks as well. But sometimes when it comes out in pro play, people take so long to get the death cap because they're going for more utility items and defensive items and stuff. And I know a lot of the Veigar players can be very critical of that.
Yeah, going to see what Darkwings ends up going with. I'd also think Hambach was in such a good position last game on the Wukong, but I would say him getting picked off was one of the things that led to the DSG comeback. So again, now having this early gold lead, he's going to have to try and not have any nerves. I was watching his player cam right after that loss. He really seemed almost the most dejected on Sentinels. So he is in a position to have a good game here on the bye.
Yeah, he's had some great starts. Even in series and games that they have lost, I feel like Hambach's early game is undeniably great. He has really been excelling, I feel like, in a lot of the early games. And remember, LCS playoffs are going to be live at the Riot Games Arena. Starting next week, we are back on stage. So if you want to come watch some LCS action, see some fun games like this, it's going to be really fun next week. So definitely buy your tickets now, and we will see you there. It's also worth noting something we touched on in the previous games was kind of the discussion of like, oh, do you want tabbies? Do you want mercs? Well, tabbies are great for Castle, both against Impact and Hambach, but then you look and you see how much CC there is between LYON and Veigar and all this later, and it could be hard to move later in the game if you get hit by any of the CC, so we'll have to be on point with the counter strikes to be able to avoid the LYON Q and things like that.
Definitely lane boots. We know the Renekton game as well. He was getting chain CC'd with steel caps, not merc treads as well. So he is prepping for lane. Second Drake being up, and with how strong Darkwings is, Roa to just a lost chapter, but Kryra's looking in River like he wants to make something happen.
Yeah, Darkwing's pop that goes very early, so wants to threaten with the cage here, but Call Me is behind him. Castle fighting on the top side against Impact. Call Me goes in, the charm does not connect, and now the CC is coming in. He gets burst down in a hurry. Double bubble comes out from Lions as Sejed is pushing forward. Sejed gonna Valk over the wall, gets that kill. Hombok in some trouble. Rahel has arrived. Can they make it happen? They're trying to focus down Hombok, but they don't have the damage. It looks like Hombok still alive. It's a double for Rahel. Kryra ults, flashes out to safety, but Sentinels are up 5-1.
And I kind of feel like that was always how that fight was going to go. Call Me tried to be sacrificial for his team, but the burst is so high with Vi, Leona, Veigar. Call Me doesn't realize he's on top of a ward, but it's just ult into Veigar. He's always going to be one shot there. Maybe DSG thinks now that that's happened, we're ahead of the MF, we can probably win the fight, but they lose the turnaround.
Castle about to get solo killed. That is an Ignite ticking, not a solo kill, excuse me, as who he was there does grab the kill. As we jumped out of that replay, he's going to get taken down. Castle had been doing great in the 1v1, but who he gets up there and makes it happen. I have to give credit as well to Huhi in that previous fight. Call Me goes in with the ulti charm. I think their call is, hey, maybe we can just one-shot Huhi before anything happens. Huhi flashed the charm, and then all of the CC comes out.
True.
Your Ahri dies for free. Come back to life. Huhi's up on the top side. 5 out of 6 KP. He has been everywhere, and we're going to watch this now one more time as we didn't really get to catch the full play.
Yeah, it looks like Castle was going in for the trade, but Huhi arrives with the Ignite. I kind of feel like Impact was going to win that regardless.
Yeah, I agree. You know, when we came out of the replay, at first I was like, oh, it's a solo kill. Then I saw the Leona, and I'm like, oh, it's not a solo kill. And then we saw the replay, and you're like, yeah, it was actually kind of a solo kill. He just ignited for an assist, but actually got the kill.
Yep, good job, Huhi. I mean, Huhi's put in the work this game. He deserves a kill every once in a while. He's put in the work this series. He's been playing great.
Though Impact probably disagrees. You know, Impact wants that kill.
Yep. He's been losing lane the whole time. Really needs that gold.
Yeah.
It's incredibly crucial.
So I've got counterpicked. I'm getting smacked around. I'm about to solo kill this guy, and you come and you steal my kill. Well, but team gets more gold. That's what they always tell me in those kind of plays, you know? It's the assist gold.
More.
Yep, Huhi is back up here, and Castle not going to have the Berg Treads, of course. You know, does need the tabbies for this 1v1, but potentially could be in some punishment as there's the Grim Return and the knock-up, and Call Me is going to get the bad news. The Hombok is here, but nicely timed. Going to be able to Spirit Rush out to safety. But it is, again, Ahri with no ult. Call Me struggling last game, and I feel like the Ahri not off to the start that you want this game either.
Yeah, definitely getting heavily targeted. DSG opted to counterpick top lane instead of mid lane. Don't think they're going to be able to get much done to Impact.
Yeah, they chunk him low, and Nami is in the area, but you do not have a lot of DPS to actually be able to knock him down. If he just ults, gets a bit of a heal, he was stacking up that passive, but Hombok is in the area now too. Remember, Call Me has no ult, so they will just back it off, but they were able to proc that Crystalline Bulwark, get a bit of plate gold. Still, the gold nearly 2,000, excuse me, nearly 3,000, as it is now 2,800 in their lead. Ulti gonna get let rip there onto Sejed, and if he stays around, there is potential that Hombok could knock him down.
This game definitely looking a lot harder for DSG than even game 4 where they're, sorry, even game 3 where they fell far behind, just because I don't feel like they have the same level of scaling that they would have had. The Veigar as well is just looking exceptional for Dark Wings. Hombok off to another very good start, and then Impact as well, who might have been counterpicked and might have fallen pretty far behind, has hit his Trinity Force and is looking very strong. So, you know, too early to call it, but we are definitely more likely to have game 5 than not.
It is looking that way for sure. I mean, Dark Wings, you said it, scaling really well. 182 stacks of the passive, so that's a lot of free AP. Has a Swift March, which I really, really like. Move speed is so valuable on Veigar because it's all about being able to get in range, to actually get down that cage onto people. And is, of course, playing the Summoner Spellbook, which could be extremely valuable as well. Right now was sitting on the Cleanse, so that's going to make things a lot harder for DSG, as even if he's kind of flexing on you, you can't just one-shot him with a Charm. And Rahel, when you hit that BT on MF, all of a sudden, you just kind of own the mid lane. You can just kind of heal up after all of these trades. So we'll see where DSG wants to take us to try to claw their way back.
Yeah, this is it's a pretty crucial part of the game when you're sitting with this 3,000 gold lead and everyone has bounties. Yes, you can snowball the game, but if you make that one mistake and give away bounties, it can very quickly fall out of your control. So Sentinels definitely in the driver's seat, but I'd say compared to previous seasons, the game's a lot more volatile in this stage than it has been in the past.
It really is. I mean, we had a couple times last game where it felt like, oh, there's the throw. This team's going to win. Or, oh, they made a great play. They're going to be able to come back. And it would kind of bounce back and forth, back and forth. So we'll see. He was, of course, spotted on vision up on that top side. But if he does lock down Calmy could be in a lot of trouble. Is playing the Merc Treads himself, so has the upgraded Tier 3 Merc Treads. Going to give him a little bit of shielding to help survive against that CC. But it's just always so tough. You know, when you get behind on the RE and you're going defensive style build, as you are with these Merc Treads, you just don't really have a lot of oomph behind your damage. It's like, who are you supposed to be going for?
I mean, DSG playing really aggressively around these Drakes. I do feel like this might be one where they would just try and concede. They almost got that turret down bot lane, but with Herald being put in mid lane by Sentinels, it seems like it's probably too tough to defend.
Nice timing on the bubble there. Does catch Hui, but it means he doesn't bounce back, and he's going to lock down Kryra. Kryra, great timing on the W, though. Absorbs so much of that MF damage. Helps to keep him alive, but Mundo with no ulti is kind of useless. Impact trying to stack up the Cultivation of War. Does use his ult. Castle still has his. Maybe that's the edge that lets them fight.
I think it's actually the edge that lets Ahri get some plates. So overall, that would be good. They're going to give up the Drake, but at least they're trading it for something on the other side. Calmy getting some plates. Castle actually is spotted by Darkwings. Might end up falling here.
Ooh, good Counter-Strike. Block the flash Q from Hui. The stun does not land, and Darkwings can't finish him off. So, yeah, they do lose the Dragon. They get some plates on the top side. Are going to actually finish off that turret, so that is really nice for them. And we're able to push in that mid-wave, so deny a couple minions. But still, it's a 3.4K gold lead. It's Impact going bot to grab a couple more plates. Nearly 4,000, as it does kind of slingshot back and forth based on the camps and minions getting picked up.
Yeah, and Impact also looking to be able to clean out this bot lane turret, thanks in part to the really delayed recall from Castle. So, nice plate sequence by Sentinels, dropping the Herald mid, clear out space, clear mid turret, clear bot turret, also clear Drake, and they only end up trading back their own top tier one. So, Golden Blues hopefully not as stressed as he's been in the previous games. Now they're sitting on a 4,000 gold and 1 Drake lead.
You can see the Actualizer has been picked up now there for the Veigar. And we know Veigar's burst is terrifying, so can be quite powerful. And it's also one of these champions that actually gets a lot of benefit out of the secondary part of the Actualizer, which is the basic spell cooldown reduction, which is really, really nice because you can get multiple rotations out there. But if you catch someone with a cage, you pop the Actualizer with the QWR. That's a ton of extra damage all at once.
It's definitely for the old school players, you know, Deathfire Grasp reimagined, rather than having to press DFG on the player. You just get to press it and have DFG on everyone.
And DSG is pushing forward here, trying to come back. Kryra does tag Rahel, who is put quite low. Doesn't want to commit anything more. And Rahel will be put low, but has the BT. And we'll just go heal up off the Wolves as Darkwings takes down that tower up on the top side. Again, Hui just utilizing the pressure that he has, you know, really moving around the map so well. Lions on the Nami obviously don't have that same ability. So Jed gonna get Q flash. Whoa. Beautiful combo coming through. Can they finish him off? Not just yet. Kryra is there as well. The cage gonna come out defensively. Does keep Homebok safe, and now Kryra gonna get locked down. Kryra does have the ulti, but it's gonna be too late. Can't even get it off. Sentinels grabbing another kill there on the turnaround.
And it's 20 minutes where they can just turn immediately on to Baron, so they might make quick work of this game. Already up 5,000. Will turn to about 6.6 if they get this. Death timers are relatively short, though.
Yeah, Calmy in the area. Lions here. They know they have to try something. Calmy's going to go in, does land the charm, but it's just on impact. And he has to flash right back out. Castle going in, 4-man Counter-Strike. Can he make something happen? The bubble comes through. Rahel is going to be shut down there by the Ahri. Calmy on the run here, trying to get away. Charm going to be sidestep. Homebok is coming in behind him. He's going to go for the TP out. Can he get there? That was so close. Looks like he survives unless he burns down to the red buff, but he's going to get out. Nicely played there by Calmy as DSG solo laners making a game-saving play.
Wow.
That went from 5K to, it's still a big lead, but they erase some of the gold lead. They defend the Baron, and they get out.
And they got the bounty off of MF. That must be so frustrating if you're Sentinels right now, because you feel like you've done everything right there. You try and land the haymaker at the end, completely overexpose yourself, get counterpunch back, because the beginning of this play, absolutely beautiful. They one-shot, effectively one-shot the Corki once the double up comes through from Rahel. And then just a sniper that Hui has become here on the Leona, dead center on the ultimate. I just wonder if they overestimated their damage. Remember, Baron's so tanky right now. Really nice in out at the start from Calmy, and then a 3-man stun while the Baron is free hitting. Just allows them to get some damage. It's crazy that Calmy gets out without dying at the very end of it, though. Hambach used his Q, so Calmy immediately starts teleporting, and just can't get the Q back up.
That was really smart. Great call from him. And just so well played there by Calmy and Castle. I mean, Calmy goes in, gets some spells out, gets to get a chunk of damage down, and then as soon as the cage came out from Veigar from Darkwings, Castle just flashed it and gets the counter-strike on everyone, gets in the midst of that whole team, and gets them some much-needed gold back. Castle, the only one with an individual gold lead on his team, and a lot of pressure on him as a result. He had counterpick. He's the only one with the gold lead.
Yeah.
You really want to see him having a big effect if you are a fan of DSG and looking for them to try to close this one out.
Yeah, the Mundo needs to continue to scale. Hasn't really been able to get many Heartsteel procs this game since they've always been on the back foot. Still, Sentinels completely in the driver's seat. 30 seconds until this next Drake. DSG, last Drake, they were able to trade something back, but all the tier 1s have been taken away, so less likely they'd be able to take one now. If they're counting the items, this might be a time where they're kind of close. It's 2 items on Vi and Zehen and only 1.5 on Castle and Kryra, so maybe not the time to fight, but they're positioning. They have 2 items on Jax now.
They're going to TP in. Castle has that TP shield. Will they try to force a fight with it? The Grim Return going to miss there from Impact. As some good poke coming out from DSG. The Corki's been landing some damage onto Darkwings as well as Huhi, who has been chipped down a little bit. Castle going to be forced to use that Counter-Strike defensively, and that TP shield from the role quest will be expiring here pretty darn soon. Kryra as well as Sajed just trying to chip away, trying to get them low before the fight would break out.
Pretty good poke just from Mundo Cleavers. They have the sustain advantage with the Nami, so Castle's hoping that Sentinels try and push a little too far through, and then he can get a flank engage, but Impact doing a good job holding that bush.
Yeah, and they've lost control of the mid wave, so DSG has to now wait. They got to be careful there, too far forward.
Yep.
And now comes Hambach going in on the engage, a bullet time over the top, and he's surely going to fall. Lives for a while. Castle trying to turn around, Sajed trying to get involved, but he's going to be exhausted, and he's got to run for it. Castle's going to get knocked down as Hambach goes on a rampage. Sentinels crush the fight. DSG were way overextended. Your Corki's on the mid wave, and they didn't back up.
Absolutely. Sentinels very coordinated, but that is basic stuff where Calmy's struggles end up continuing here. Once the Corki shows, it's clear as day that Sentinels just needs to go in. So they try and still fight a little bit on the back end, but with Calmy being one shot, they're never going to have a chance in this fight. Castle ends up falling as well. They lose the Drake, and that's just, they lost the standoff once they lost control of the mid-wave, and they didn't back up soon enough, Azil.
Yeah, I mean, it gets really, really tough, and I didn't actually catch who autoed that blast cone that knocked the Ahri back into the cage, but that goes the other way as well, and now it is going to be Impact knocking down a tower here. 5.7K, the gold lead. DSG does have some scaling, but they have been stalled quite a lot here. Impact potentially going to get run down, trying to turn around, maybe look to stack this up. He's going to go for a TP play himself, but this one is not going to work. Tries to make his best Calmy impression, but this one is not going to succeed, unfortunately for him. So dies and loses his TP. That's a little bit of insult to injury.
Yeah, little things like that can be game losing if they accumulate over time, but they're still in a pretty strong position as a team. The bounty going over to Mundo, a little bit dangerous. You know, when Mundo hits level 16, he can get really raid bossy, but there's still a lot of damage and heal cut already completed on the side of Sentinels.
Yeah, I mean, it is really interesting, Mundo Ultimate, because it has just such a change at rank 3. So, at rank 3, both the healing effects are increased by an additional 5%, but you start getting bonus HP from everyone that's around you when you activate it. So, normally ultimates just go up, but it's like it does more of the same thing. This has an additional effect at the max rank, which is why level 16 is so powerful for the Mundo. And he does have 2.5 items, is mostly focused on that armor for now. And I think rightfully so, as Veigar obviously not the highest DPS champion, but does have a Void Staff already completed, and means the death cap is going to be pretty delayed. Hambach going to be looking for a pick, and there is Calmy. Now you see him, now you don't. He is knocked down in a hurry. Castle, though, trying to come in on the flank, tries to get in onto Hambach. Hambach interrupts the leap strike. Castle incredibly low, but still alive for now. Sajed going to flash forward, but he can't find the rocket under a hell. Impact finds the Grim Return onto Sajed, and it is everyone from DSG falling. They are going down like fish in a barrel. kill. Darkwings gets a double. Kryra is running away. DSG try to look for a play after their mid laner gets picked, but they just can't make it happen.
And Sentinels just have absolute tunnel vision onto Call Me. Every time he's on their screen, they're finding a new way to kill him. They just one-shot him at the start, and you could see DSG thought, you know, maybe this is the time we can return it, but they're trying to retake space where they have absolutely no vision. The spacing between the Mundo and the Ahri is just too small, so it allows them to go for the squishy target. Yes, some nice damage gets landed by Sajed, crits Rahel a couple of times, can't get the execute on that flash rocket. Even if he gets it, that's a 1-kill fight instead of a 0-kill fight. So 4 of them end up going down at the end, and Sentinel get the Baron and take full control of the game.
It's a great sidestep by Rahel. Right as Sajed flashes forward, Rahel just kind of sidesteps to the side, utilizes that passive with the strut, the additional move speed, hugs the wall, gets out, and Hambach now nearly a 2,000 gold lead. Both his carries on the bot side have an over 2,000 gold lead, and he has the GA, so he can kind of just full send it on Sajed, who feels like really the only kind of consistent damage threat that they have whatsoever at this point. Impact just kind of running things in the side lane at this point is level 16, and DSG are really falling out of this one, now down about 9,000 gold. Feels like it's about time to start thinking about Game 5.
Absolutely, that's likely what Ido is thinking about in the back. How is he going to prep Game 5 draft in this Fearless? Because Call Me is half dead again already. One big RW.
Yeah, but he got put down to about 20-30% before the heal from the Nami came through. And that wasn't even a big RR or anything like that. Was the activation of the actualizer. But is looking for that death cap now. Now the TP going to come out here from Castle. Can he find an angle? He's spotted already. Lion's going to try to look for the engage with the Nami wave. Doesn't really find anything. He's going to get in under Rahel. Can they knock him down? Great McHale's, but it doesn't matter as Calmy's going to be able to get the first kill on the other side though. Sajed falls. Calmy's trying to run here from Impact. Darkwings, Impact, as well as Hambach looking for the fight. Hambach is low, but still has the GA, and now the Cultivation of War is stacked up. Impact is going to be fearless, has that revive ready. Won't need it though. Going to be able to push in, grab another inhibitor here. It was a good attempt from DSG. They did kill off Rahel, who had no flash, but at the end of the day, doesn't really change much.
Yep, love to see the effort. They're not just going to slowly bleed out, but at this point, it's a 2-for-1. Mountain Soul is going to be up in 20 seconds. Darkwing still scaling. 374 from that passive. Death cap not completed yet. If it does complete, it's just going to get even more absurd for this Veigar. How much AP is he sitting on pre-death cap? 878. With the Baron buff and the Elixir. So he knows these are crucial fights, but I don't even think this Soul is contestable.
Yeah, probably not, but hey, may as well, just pop everything you can for this fight, because realistically, if you get the Soul, well, how does DSG come back? They are looking for one-shots, and then you have Mountain Soul on top of that with a 10,000 gold lead. It gets almost impossible. You have to think to be able to find a way back into this game. Sentinels, have had their kind of share of ups and downs throughout the series, but this is their best game, I think it's fair to say so far.
I think so as well. Hambach has played excellent these last 2 games, aside from one mistake on the Wukong last game. Otherwise, if they don't throw that lead in Game 3, they could be thinking, oh man, this would be a 3-1 for us, but it's going to be going to that Game 5. So they're going to have a lot of momentum going into this Game 5. I think on the side of DSG, Calmy's got to shake it off. The Yone game was shaky. This game has been pretty disastrous for him on the Ahri, because Hambach Darkwings have just been so good in the 2v2, despite the language barrier that we know exists between the two of them. So right now, Mountain Soul, 2 inhibitors down. Sentinel's not taking any unnecessary risks. If DSG extend or try and clear some vision, I can see Sentinels going for a fight. But otherwise, we might be waiting these 2 minutes for the next Baron.
Yeah, I think they're just going to try to sit back. And I mean, if you're DSG, the only way you win this game is maybe you get a random Baron steal and an Elder steal or something, right, to try to equalize. But going to be incredibly difficult. And I've got to give credit where credit is due. I thought Sentinels might be the team that would struggle more in a late game Fearless situation, but they have been looking good. Castle tries to sidestep the Zenith Blade, but going to have to pop the Stasis as that ulti comes through. Lion's going to let the ulti rip here as he is a bit nervous from the engage coming through.
Yeah. Doesn't want the Leona to be able to get in range to ult them. With 2 waves of supers moving in, they're trying to play on this bottom cannon. I think they're strong enough to try and do this without Baron.
Oh yeah, Darkwing's just TP'd back with the death cap. And the actualizer is ready, so we'll see if he can get a one-shot. If he can set that up, would definitely be able to burst someone down in a hurry.
Yeah, 1,044 AP. and an actualizer. So come on, Darkwings, let's see it.
That's like a QR one-shot from full, pretty much. But we are going to have that Mundo passive, keeping Kryra safe thus far. But now you have been triple inhibited, and the walls are closing in. We'll see if DSG can find a fight to delay the game a little bit. There's the cage coming through. Calmly going to look, does find the charm, but it is just onto Hui. Bubble's there to follow, but really, who cares? That's just the LYON you've landed your damage on, and Castle now getting chunked down there by Impact. The minions coming in, they're going to go for it. Here is the bullet time across multiple members. Castle's in the back line, but Rahel has the barrier. It's a double kill already for the Veigar. How much more can they get?
Oh, let's get a
Jen
penta.
Flashing back. It's a triple for the Veigar. The bot lane's in the base. Darkwings is not going to get a penta, but he is going to help to send us to Game 5 with an 8-0-8 Veigar game.
This series is absolutely delivering. The teams are neck and neck. In week 1, it was a 2-1 series, and now we are again going the distance.
Done.
Yeah, the difference between top 3 and just out is pretty narrow, potentially, depending on how much those teams are able to improve during their off week. No big surprises in the bans so far. A lot of mid lane targeting, though. So Azir's been banned the whole series. Aurora's been banned the whole series. Talia's been through a few times, but unpicked, but is banned in this game. So we're really going deep on Darkwings and Calmy's pools.
Yeah, it's really interesting as well. You know, the Aurora obviously has been played a lot as a counter pick to Rumble, and Rumble has not yet been played, right? So, you know, could also be potentially a protection ban for Rumble, and then DSG has to decide, all right, well, do we just want to take the Rumble? Because traditionally in this series, Castle has been wanting to counter pick, right? You know, he has been waiting and delaying.
I apologize. I said that DSG selected first pick because that's what it said in our prompter, but it is Sentinels that is on the
They
blue
chose the
side.
other side, but DSG does have first pick.
I hate
You got
this.
baited by the
I hate
2026
this. I got
changes.
baited by myself and my 15 years of watching League of Legends with a standard
I
draft.
apologize for being correct because DSG does have the first pick.
Yep. I apologize that my prompter was giving me the right information despite my instincts saying the other way. And that does actually set up. It threw me off because the Aurora ban, I was thinking would set up a first pick, but why would you ban it if you don't have control of first pick? Because now Castle just gets it.
Yeah, I guess maybe they can go Galio as the answer. That's more impact-y anyway.
Yeah.
So maybe they were saying, oh, I don't think, you know, either we go Galio as an answer or, you know, you don't first pick the Rumble and then we take it away and you can't do the Aurora, which would be more of the Castle style. So this is going to be interesting. Xin Zhao grabbed up early. As the AD junglers, we've worked through a lot of them. So that does become, you know, really kind of prime real estate.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Xin is up this late and then DSG just says, okay, we're dropping our Kryra jungle pick for later.
There's the Galio
It's
that's
gotta
I'm
be
expecting.
Galio.
I would think for sure. We'll see. I mean, Bard into Varus, always really, really strong. Lions, I don't think has had a good series. And Bard is a high execution champion. I'm expecting the Galio. I think when they ban the Aurora and you give over the Rumble, you have to go Galio. But over on this DSG side, there's no true setup yet for Castle.
Yeah.
And I think Equalizer without really good setup can be tough. Obviously, you can like Bard ult, then Equalizer over the top, but it's not the same as like a Rel or a Nautilus or whatever.
Currently, it's just lane push, but there could be some funny business. We could have some funny business. You could jungle Rumble, and you now have a Galio sitting there that could also flex mid or top. So I think there's still some funny business left to be seen. Silas ban once again. They're really targeting Call Me, I think, quite successfully in these last few games in draft as well as in game.
Yeah, and I mean, I have to credit Darkwings. I mentioned the last game, but I thought Darkwings and Impact were going to be the ones that were more easily targeted, but the Veigar was great last game. We'll see how he performs here in Game 5. Call Me definitely has been outperformed by Darkwings, though, for sure. I think both Darkwings and Hui really playing well this series has made a difference to bring us all the way to Game 5. More mid lane bans coming through as Syndra is going to now be targeted. And the question is, where will Darkwings go? He already brought us something new thus far. Jace, who has been getting through a lot of the series,
but
is
I just
now
think
banned.
really good bans by Sentinels there. The Jace is would be such a good pick for Call Me right there. It's denied.
It's also interesting, too, because if they think Darkwings is too pinched, he can just play Galio, right? Like, you know, in a worst-case scenario, we're like, I don't know what to play. You can play Galio. Syndra's going to be banned out. Cassio's going to be banned out. So he has to show us another new pick, because every champion that he has played, unless he is going to swap that Galio to mid lane, is going to be gone already. And we'll find out where he wants to take us. Varus, obviously, a really high priority pick in general, but Wei makes a lot of sense. I do think control mages are the bread and butter for Darkwings, so he's going to be able to lock that in. Now, Call Me, he has counter pick, but what do you have left here to try to really turn things on their head? LeBlanc would be super risky, and I just don't know if he's performing at a level that I kind of really want to see it from. Diana would be interesting as a jungle pick. It's something that hasn't been played a lot of, but that would be giving yourselves quite a lot of AP.
I'm so curious the way this draft plays out. The Hwei is something that we've seen from Darkwings last year.
Ooh.
Tristana mid to balance out the damage.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's great into Hwei, though, with the range difference.
Yeah, the range difference, and also one of the interactions that it makes it really, really tough, because I used to play a lot of Tristana mid, is anytime you actually go for a rocket jump, he can just fear you. Like, because there's no dodging the rocket, there's no dodging while you're in the rocket jump, right?
Yeah.
So I think that can be a difficulty, is sometimes you can get pushed in, and generally speaking, like, Trist has been nerfed mid quite a few times, so you kind of have to have push and win out early, or you can sometimes just get whittled down. So I'm a little bit worried for Call Me on this, but it is going to give them some really good scaling. You have super consistent DPS here between the Sivir as well as the Tristana. It gives you double AD threat against the Gallia, who wants to be kind of anti-MR, and it's going to be Sejuani to give them their hard engage. So Sejuani, we are assuming going to be in the jungle, and Rumble top. Who he going to be able to grab? Another engaged champ. I feel like Sen just has an easier draft to play. You send in Rakan and Xin, Galio ults over the top, and you have two really solid carries.
They definitely do. They won game 4, so they're the ones that are sitting with the momentum. But the Rumble that has been banned all series did fall into the hands of Castle. We'll see if he can get anything going early on. Not to mention just the big game 5 picks like the Sejuani, something Cry was always been successful with in lower tier leagues. But he's going up against a Xin, who's like that's a game 1 fearless jungler.
Yeah.
So a few power picks definitely making their way into game 5, which we kind of joked about when we had that crazy Ivern Nasus game 3. The game 5 will then actually feel more normal.
What will we get? Ornn versus Cassante.
Rumble versus Galio. Unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Xin Zhao, Bard, Rakan. One of the things I do think kind of quietly is cool about Fearless is it shows you actually how many viable champions there are, right?
Yeah.
When you can go to a game 5, have all the bans come through, and you're still like, hey, it kind of just looks like League of Legends. There's actually a lot of really good champs.
Yeah, none of these champions would you be completely shocked to see even in game 1, except maybe Tristana this year.
Yeah.
As we're strategically building suspense with a pause early on in the game. We'll have to see who called for this one in game 5.
So one of the players is not yet back from the restroom, so just waiting for the players to return.
Did they draft without him?
I don't know. Maybe
That's
they picked and then tried to run and try to get back in time.
Maybe.
I do that in solo queue. They just like us, you know? You lock in your first pick, you lock in your pick, you run to the bathroom.
I mean, let's pan out. Who was it? Supports are in chair. Oh, Sajed, my man. For what it's worth, this is fair. Game 1, Rahel was gone. So each team's AD carry
They're
gets one.
equalizing the bathroom breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is fair.
That should be added to the rulebook.
Yeah, exactly. Every time they take one, you get one too. You know?
I actually hate that because I hate delays, Azale.
Never mind. Take it out of the rulebook.
The rulebook should say no bathroom breaks once you enter Champ Select.
Capital punishment for bathroom breaks in the LCS. That's what we support here.
Definitely some legality that I think creates the need for these pauses, but I'm still against it.
We'll pose this to Mark. You know, it's not. It's above our pay grade. He's the one that has to decide if capital punishment for bathroom breaks is appropriate in the
Mark,
LCS.
Depending on his ruling, we'll take it to Gavin Newsom. You know, we'll see if he approves.
Up the food chain, from us to Mark to Gavin Newsom. That's generally how we decide our rulings here at the LCS. But we got a game 5, and it's been such a fun series. I'm excited to see how it actually finishes, right? Both these two teams, so much on the line, America's Cup qualification, as well as, you know, maintaining their spot in the upper bracket to try to make it all the way to first stand. These teams would really love to be able to do that, but I feel like DSG has already just had such a better split than people have expected, you know, even if they were to lose here. They have had a great showing, you know, with a team that has a lot of young players. 4 of them, this is their first ever playoff series over on the DSG side, and they are going 5 games. Of course, over on the other team, we do have people that are having their first series as well. Hambach and Darkwings had never played any playoff games either, so that is really cool for a lot of these guys to be getting experience, and I feel like a lot of them are showing up.
And Hambach has improved incredibly since week 1 when they lost to DSG. And I don't think we necessarily knew the whole story of Hambach when he arrived on week 1, because the week 1 game between these two teams was Kizno subbing in for Kryra, and we think, oh, Sentinels has their whole team, so they're going to be more coordinated. But Hambach had just joined the team, and I learned that he hadn't scrimmed in a year because he got subbed out of his Tier 1 team in LCK. was the 6th man, so wasn't scrimming with the academy team, wasn't scrimming with the main team. So it made sense that he was having issues with coordination, but him and Huhi have been so connected in the latter part of these series. He seems to have a good early game every single time, and he's going to look to have one more to win this game 5.
I'm very impressed by Darkwings. I mean, yeah, he did come in a little bit at the end of last year, but like, you know, he subbed in to a DSG team that was like the most dead last, you know, at the end of last split. Him and Rahel came in, you know, really did make pretty big changes on that roster when they subbed in. They were really able to step things up. And, you know, I had questions about how he was going to perform, you know, in this team. A lot of coaches that I had talked to had the same questions as well. And I think he's been very, very good here against Call Me. And Darkwings, you know, earning his spot, definitely. He's looking good.
Yeah, he definitely holds his own. I think has been the better mid laner so far in this series, but game 5 can always change that story. So I'm excited about the performance of both of these teams, because especially when you have these teams who, for a lot of people, were either middle or bottom of the pack, both being such strong performers, it just creates for a very exciting league. And when they play against each other, they always seem to go the distance.
I mean, it makes it really unpredictable. You know, a lot of our power rankings have been pretty off. You never know what's going to happen by the end of the split, but it's been a lot of fun to watch thus far. As Impact looking for a trade here onto Castle, and we'll proc that phase rush and just walk out. So I actually really love this new Galio skin. I think it's actually pretty sick.
I love it, except, I mean, I love it because I'm going to play it. I just don't actually think it's that readable compared to other Galio skins. The ultimate is harder for me to see, not to mention the spikes on the wings look a little bit like Aurelia ultimate going off to me. I imagine pro players now are completely used to it because it's such a cool skin and I see it picked every single time. But man, it looks super cool, I'll give you that.
A little bit pay to win there, you know?
That's your words. I'm just saying.
I'm just translating
feel like
for Jat.
It
Jat
looks
wants
unique.
capital punishment and doesn't like pay to win skins. There you go. But no, it's definitely a cool skin. I mean, I remember that when you remember. What is the Ash skin called? That was like one of those legendary Ash skins. I remember a lot of pro players told me that the Hawk Shot they thought was like ultimate when it first came out. But people get used to those pretty quick. So, you know, I definitely think pro players are going to be seeing it a lot and not really going to be thrown off by the animations whatsoever. So not too big of a deal there, as top lane looking pretty even. Really across the board, things are quite even. We just have full clears from both junglers. And then really just kind of trading of farm around here. Only thing we haven't touched on yet is Rahel, of course, is going to be playing on Hit Ferris. Makes a lot of sense. He is going to be that high DPS build. You know, you have to be able to get through that Sejuani, and they want to have that consistent damage, as Galio isn't really going to be bringing that.
Yeah, I could definitely see it going both ways, because if he had gone lethality, he'd have the range advantage on both the Trist and the Sivir, but definitely is better against the Sejuani to have the attack speed. I think this is one of those games where he could have gone either way. Yeah,
fair enough. Both of them are quite strong, and that's that interaction I was talking about. When you rocket jump in on the Trist, you are going to get feared, and generally that means you're going to get hit by 2 spells, which is going to be a proc of that passive. As Kryra is over in the area, but Castle gonna have to flash out because Hombach was there first. Lions now here on the invade. Should have been spotted by that ward though as he walked in the brush, so Hombach I think is waiting for impact and seeing, can I get over there for a smite steal? Who he has now arrived as well, as nice sidestep there from Lions. Will be able to go over the wall, but Kryra in some trouble. They're gonna just continue the chase here. Will impact flash forward? He uses the taunt. Can't really catch too much, but does get the Bard, and Lions now flashing out. Not gonna be able to get away. First blood grabbed by Darkwings, as these invades are just not working out for DSG whatsoever.
Yeah, total disaster. They're losing so much off of this. I mean, Rumble is able to push in top lane, but mid lane has to sit. Raptors will go over what could have just stayed a standard full clear game for the Sejuani versus the Xin. Kryra, 2 games in a row in pretty much the same spot, ends up leading to a team death. So good start for Sentinels, but it's pretty much just Huhi being on top of things, matching the roams and playing defense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this time obviously they had Lions, you know, making the roam, so they did have their support up there as well. But yeah, it's the same play. They went for the same kind of invade. Last time Carver goes down, this time he does not go down himself, but unfortunately it is a first blood going there over to Darkwings. And again, these kind of matchups can sometimes snowball pretty heavily, as Calmy getting chunked low, does have the Bard trying to heal himself back up. And Lions, you know, flashed late. He didn't flash the taunt from impact. Ended up taking that, got incredibly low, then flashed and died anyway. And that is a pretty punishing death. That's one that he should have had to use his flash, but I don't think he should have died.
Yeah, they likely would have lost a lot of pressure regardless, but the death adds insult to injury. You can see they've also now gone double call. Something that I think is fine, especially if you're just holding the game even. Like with double AD carry and a front line, oftentimes you're kind of waiting for the game to come to you, but now they're going to try and make something happen onto Rahel or Huhi. Hard to get a recon though. Yeah,
not going to be able to get much. Lions playing Lex Shoot, so it does get at least that proc. Going to be a potion used by Huhi, but it's just refillable, so honestly, who cares? Rahel going to be rushing towards that Blade of the Rune King. And Sajed taking a little bit of damage there, but it is just kind of a farm fest down on that bottom side. I mean, the scaling obviously not bad whatsoever for DSG. They do have these double AD carries. Looks like Calmy is potentially going in towards some Merc Treads here early on, just to try to answer all of the CC as well as the magic damage that is going to be coming out.
Makes a lot of sense. I think they need to be in a defensive pattern, though. I'm trying to get in the head of Cryer and why he's going for these engages. It's almost like they're very flippy engages. I don't feel like they necessarily had a very strong lane to play through, because even if you have the Rumble push top, Galio can always just move through the brush and get to you first. I'm not sold on it. He doesn't have stronger dueling than the Xin. It's backfired 2 games in a row, and I feel like they have better scaling as well. So it's like a home run play where he's almost just trying to ego on him a little bit. Yeah, I mean, and it ends up getting punished.
My guess is if you talk to him, he would say, if we execute on the play well, we should win. You know, because they had the first base from Lions, so I think they feel like, oh, Bard's going to get there first. We are quick on the play. You hit all your skills, and then you push them back, or you just kind of win out in the fight. But of course, you miss the stun. You don't actually make that happen. Then Huhi shows up, and things go pretty bad. So maybe it just feels like, hey, it's an execution thing. It is the right play, but we're not executing on it. But has happened a couple times in a row, and it is one of those risky moves that can be punished quite heavily. As Impact gets back to lane now, is down to almost 20 CS. You know, a little bit of that is obviously from the roam, but the same thing happened last game, and it ended up not mattering whatsoever. Castle got out to a pretty early 20-ish CS lead in the Zehen Jax matchup, but then Impact was not getting punished more heavily than that, eventually caught up.
Yeah, Impact has been incredibly solid. Also, based off of the shenanigans that happened to Gromp, seems like a pretty easy Drake by Hambach. This might be the first Drake the Sentinels has gotten this series, but the pressure's really on for Sentinels now, invading blue buff as well.
I actually really like this. So Huhi, it's kind of a subtle play, but he goes behind, he interrupts the Bard recall, and he stacks the wave behind the tower. So what this does is it means that the wave is pushing away from DSG. So Sajid now has no support, and he can't walk up to the wave. So his wave is getting denied. Kryra is also getting pushed out. Lions is back now, but like they are just bleeding minions on the bottom side of that lane. And, you know, it should be pushing away. And as you see, it is. Because all because of this little thing that Huhi did where he stacked the wave. That's like plus 4 or 5 minions that Huhi made from stacking the wave behind their tower. And then knowing Sajid can't back up.
And they just cleaned the entire jungle from Kryra. Like, he is fuming at the moment. They lose Gromp, they lose the minions bot lane, and they can't even defend the jungle. So Sentinels, Hambach, Huhi, jungle support synergy has been completely on point. They match the first invade, repel it, and then they execute their own invade expertly.
Yeah, their Calmy jumps in, immediately gets feared, and the ulti is going to be thrown down. He, of course, will survive, but it is tough when you take that damage. And Trist, it's like, yeah, technically you can go in for some early lifesteal, but then your first item is so delayed. You do not want to go like BT or Bork on Trist as your first item. You want to go just crit scaling items. So these matchups where you're getting poked become very, very difficult because Trist only trades by going aggressive. And when you jump in, you get feared and you just get hit by ulti. It is really, really tough. And in my experience, these matchups just kind of get worse as it goes on. Of course, you always have that ability to maybe outplay in the team fight, but it's not easy for Calmy, and he has had a really tough series.
Yeah, he's got to try and survive off of the life on hit from Call, the Omnivan from Doran's, and the lifesteal from Legend Bloodline, which is little tiny bits of lifesteal throughout the lane.
Yeah, but they do get the flash, though, off Dark Wings. That is very nice as Kryra makes a visit in towards mid. And he is playing Zeke, so it is going to be that lower CDR on the ulti. Sejuani's often loving these support item builds now. And it is quite efficient, right? You know, you get the armor, the Amara, the health, the CDR, as well as 15 ultimate ability haste, and then you have the AoE slow from it. So it's quite nice. Calmy, though, getting chipped down and pushed in. He's down to about half HP and will have to go back to base as Darkwing's continuing to slowly build that gold lead after grabbing the first blood and even going to be able to cancel that recall again.
Yeah, I mean, DSG's really on the back foot right now. Sentinels seems to be able to do whatever they want. Yes, Castle can push an impact, but we know in the first 14 minutes of the game, that doesn't really matter almost ever for the top laners. All the plays are happening through mid-bot at the moment, and that's where Darkwings is pushing in Calmy, and Another engage on Alliance.
Yeah, Lions going to be trying to get out of there. Flashes away,
Nice.
but Hambach just flashes over the Tempered Fate, finishes him off. Lions picked again, felt safe to walk up because he had the magical journey, but it just doesn't matter. They commit to him and they get that kill.
But, like, Kryra is just without plays at the moment. It's another deep invade, and he's losing his Gromp for the second rotation in a row. Last time it was Blue Gromp, now it's Wolves Gromp. It's going to become a massive experience advantage for Xin versus Sejuani in this game.
He's down over 30 CS in the jungle.
Two levels.
That is brutal. Yeah, Kryra is feeling like he is kind of out of it. And a lot of it, I feel like, yeah, you know, it's one of these things where it's just kind of snowballing off of the earlier play, right? But great engage here. Can they actually knock down Hambach? Let's see. Sajed going to be turned around on, is in some trouble, going to get knocked down, pops the ulti. Sajed has to use the heal and does have the spell shield come back up. The ulti from Hambach will expire, but he dashes back in, gets the flash force. Hambach almost gets him with the wind, becomes lightning, and Kryra takes the kill. So Sajed has to use his flash. They have to use the heal from Lions. They barely take him down in a 3v1, and now he buys Sundered Sky.
I mean, thank God they killed him. Otherwise, wrap it up. That would have been GG right there. Because they did, that's pretty huge. You got a lot of slingshot experience when you have a big level advantage like that. The kill going over to Kryra, even though it's not ideal for your late game carry, helps him a little bit stay somewhat adequate against Hambach and items. But Hui's just going to continue to keep annoying Sivir right here, and Kryra, he still can't really farm.
No, I mean, how fearless is Hui this game? It feels like it's like the 4th time he's been behind the towers. He's just standing in between the 2 towers saying, you know what, you can't do anything about it. Like, we know you have no Sejuani help. Good luck locking me down. You're not going to be able to do anything to me. So he's just harassing them constantly. I love this kind of play from Hui, where you really know the limits of your champions, but also, almost more importantly, you know the limits of their champions. And when they're missing this Sejuani ult, they have nothing really to lock you down. So Hui's just kind of dancing on him and being as annoying as he possibly can. Hambach going to come back in for the invade. The wind becomes lightning will miss the big Krug there, excuse me, the big Raptor there, so won't be able to grab that, but they just go right back down towards the bot side. Darkwings is up 900 gold at this point. Call Me is just getting kind of gapped in the mid lane. It's been really, really tough, and it should be a freebie at the Dragon, you have to feel like, because look where Hui is again. He's scouting everything out. They're not worried at all.
Yeah, still really impressed with Hambach and just the overall synergy from Sentinels in this Game 5. It's been such a hard-fought series to this point. Definitely a few mistakes being made in previous games, but in this one, the overplay early by DSG into the jungle of Sentinels, and since then it's just been Sentinels living in this bot side. So at least Kryra gets his wolves, but blue is gone again, and the wave isn't accessible for Sajed and Sivir, and the Gromp is once again being pressured by Hambach.
This is a crazy game from Hui. I feel like he's just played this so well, constantly in their face.
They have to reset that bot wave.
He got the Grump again. Yeah, when the wave is just pushing away from him once more, Sajed can never move up. He's down 40 plus CS. This is ridiculous. And it's like, it's not like he's missing CS. He just can't walk up to the wave. Every time Hui's going behind, he's stacking the wave against him, so it's pushing out away from him. And Lions is like recalling and not there to help him push it out. They're constantly re-invading, so he doesn't feel comfortable to move up. It's a 1.6k gold lead in the bot lane without a kill. Like, this is just crazy. And sure, you have Sivir, you have Triss, great, you're gonna scale, but I don't even know if they outscale, and they're just getting pummeled in the early game.
He's still got 40 cull stacks left. Like, he's just been sitting there slowly trying to complete a support quest, but he can't do anything. How is the gold only 1,400? That's the puzzle here.
Well, look at top lane.
It's 900 for the Rumble.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's the answer, really.
I guess that's it.
Yep, it's that, and it's the Call Me Cull cashed out. So, you know, you get an injection of gold from that. You have 900 gold in the top lane. So that is kind of like making it appear a little bit closer. Of course, you know, Castle is strong, so that is something that they have going for them. But again, like I touched on in Chip Select, there's not really that much lockdown for Castle. So you could drop a good equalizer. Like you hit a Bard ult onto the Varus, you drop equalizer on his head after that. You're hoping that Sejuani can hit an ult or something, but there's not that many tools to hold him in place.
And Hui's just first out of Mikhail's, because why not?
Yep.
Because that's the one engage that DSG has.
I love it.
So Sentinels definitely making this draft look very effortless in its execution, knowing that there's just that one bit of hard engage. Hui's Recon is kind of checkmating the game, it feels like, so far.
Yeah, I mean, Hui went for an early Mikhail's even in the LYON game as well. Like, he's just grabbing it. It's making sense in pretty much every position he's taking it. And especially in this game where you have basically one button to engage, and Mikhail says, nope, can't do that. So that gets really, really tough. Rahel is scaling. Sajed has had a bit of time to farm these waves. Now they've moved him over towards mid lane, so finally he's getting access to some minions here. And they just have to hope, you know what, scale, 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 and maybe you can have a big team fight win later on. But Cryer are going to have to flash out and use the ult defensively. He's trying to invade to get something back, but Hambach is there, and he's up 2 levels, so there's no way you're ever going to win a duel against that. And Darkwings just moves over, and now all your playmaking tools are gone. Cryer feels like maybe falling victim to a little frustration when you're getting invaded.
He got the red. I actually think that's fine. He got the red, and he's...
For your flash and your ult?
Yep. Because think about what's been happening to his life in this game in the last 10 minutes. They are in his house and he can't get rid of them. So now, even with no ult, oh, Darkwings fails flash.
Darkwings, oh no, he did fail his flash going over the wall. Tried to get over, but doesn't get hugging the wall before he uses the flash and is going to get taken down as a result. They are able to grab that kill, and Castle continuing to extend that lead. And it's Calmy going to be able to jump out to safety. Nicely buffered on the taunt, but Sentinels pushing in mid lane, looking to try to knock him down.
I think this is going to be mid turret, which will open up the map even more. The gold is very close, especially after that shutdown went for Darkwings, but I feel like there's a lot of standing gold that Sentinels is going to want to collect.
So he is back in his home, in between the 2 towers. Now abusing Castle, but he's taking a lot of damage this time as he does get hit by a binding. Castle going to overheat, trying to move forward here, going to be thrown into the exhaust. Nice sidestep on the Verisalt though. Rahel trying to turn things around. Cryer is here. They won't be able to get a kill, but no one falls on either side. It is just the 1K gold lead now. Castle's strength does have to be respected.
It really does. Once they can play around the Rumble, now that they've gotten him out of that lane, the game is looking a little bit, I mean, a lot more playable, because it was really feeling unplayable for pretty much, you know, 5 minutes through 15 minutes. It felt like there was nothing they could do. They fell 50 CS behind in jungle and in bot lane. But now, you know, Calmy has kept his CS up, has cashed in his call, might even be able to get this turret in.
And he is playing against an MR stacking Galio, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is a first full item of magic resist. They do throw down the Bard ulti. Can they look for a play? But all of Sentinels are coming. This is looking not good. Calmy should be able to knock down the tower, but can he actually get out of dodge? Does have the rocket jump, but that is not going to keep him safe. Knocks down the tower, but it'll cost him his life. Unfortunately for Sentinels, Huhi grabs the kill. We'll see if they can get anything else off the back of it.
Huhi should not have done that, but it's a good kill nonetheless. Questionable Bard ult right there. So not sure what the plan was, but they get the gold onto Calmy at least before he falls, and now Lions and Cryer are at least stopping Darkwings from pushing through. So they're keeping this game actually very playable. Like, if they get to a team fight where Calmy and Sajed are sitting on 3 or 4 items and it hasn't been Soul yet, they'd still actually have a chance despite how much Huhi and Hambach have dominated in the early game.
I think it's definitely possible, but when I think about compositionally, I think it's very difficult, because how do your AD carries get past the Xin Zhao with the ultimate being active, and how do you find a good engage to burst someone down when there's Mikhail's on the other side and counter engage from Huhi? I feel like there's probably a very high chance that the Sentinels carries will have a lot easier time in the fight, where I don't know if DSG can get past the Xin. So I think that's really the question here, is can they set up Sajed as well as Calmy to have a successful fight? And they're going to go for the engage. The Equalizer will get thrown down, but I mean, it's super late. It's after the Dragon is already taken. I thought they weren't even going to try to fight, but they're like, well, all 5 are here. I guess we'll try. So they drop Equalizer as well as the Glacial Prison. Doesn't really get them anything, though, and it is now soul point for Sentinels, and that is going to be a potential Mountain Soul here in just over 4.5.
Yeah, Sentinels playing with a huge amount of confidence as Rahel has paused the game, so we'll have to check on what is going on there. But as you mentioned, very difficult game for them to play. The gold might just, it feels like a mirage, the fact that it's like 35K to 34K, because it's being completely dictated by Sentinels.
Yep, it has been completely dictated by them start to finish. They're stacking all the objectives, which obviously when you're on Soul Point, you're on the precipice of a massive amount of stats being injected into your team, which is going to make things a lot harder. And just compositionally, I feel like they have a lot of the answers. So we will have to see, can Calmy and Sajed find ways to really get involved, or can Castle, who has this massive individual gold advantage, really turn things around and maybe, you know, get a good play, burst down one of these carries? Because that's the kind of stuff it's really going to take, I feel like, for DSG to not just kind of slowly bleed out of this one. I mean, you have 4.5 minutes until the next Dragon. That is a must-win, I feel like, or your series is probably cooked.
Yeah. In Game 5, still been a very entertaining series to this point. I'd say throughout the series, it has felt like Sentinels has scaled a little bit. Dark Wings has looked more and more confident in each game. Hambach and Huhi have been very well connected early game. On the DSG side, Castle's had a great series. He's had individual advantages in almost every game. Sajed has been able to keep his farm up and teamfight very effectively in most games. This game's a little bit tragic because the bot side got so dominated and Huhi kept pulling the wave to prevent him from being able to farm. But still, a lot of League Legends to be played.
So update on the pause. Sentinel's audio did briefly cut out for a second, so they paused, and now they're making sure that that is not going to happen again. So they're investigating and making sure that there's not going to be any more audio issues going forward. Obviously going to be doing those audio checks once more, because you definitely do not want that to happen in the middle of a team fight or anything like that.
Especially in a series that has been this close going down the stretch. Looked like DSG doing some audio checks as well, just to see that there's no issues on their end. A lot of stress on this team as when you're getting choked out like this, it's a very difficult game to play. I feel like that's why we see fights like the last one, which wasn't a fight. It was just Kryra throwing his ult in and Castle throwing his ult in, because when you have no agency, you kind of want to be around to hope that someone else has some level of agency, and then you're there in case something good happens. But currently, there's just nothing good to be done for DSG.
So another update. So it actually did also happen at DSG. So it happened for both teams. So they are now continuing to investigate. They believe they have figured out what the issue was. So we should be able to hopefully get that fixed and get back to game very quickly here. But yeah, despite the close gold lead, it is a 3-Dragon lead for Sentinels. Has been a pretty back and forth series. We're here all the way in Game 5 for our first series of lock-in playoffs. The winner will go to America's Cup, will guarantee themselves at least top 3, and of course will still be in the hunt for that first stand berth that everyone is really fighting for.
Yeah, and loser will get sent down to play either LYON or Team Liquid. So with all the parity we're seeing, it was surprising that LYON and Team Liquid are even in the lower brackets. So not necessarily like you go down there and play a team that is weaker or worse. They have performed worse in the Swiss stage, but based off of reputation and scrims and preseason predictions, are actually quite strong. So a lot riding on the last bit of this Game 5, because it's either America's Cup or a very hard road back.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people I know that I've been talking to are feeling like it's even scarier going against TL and LYON because they basically have 2 weeks from their last game to their next game, right? So they have a lot of time to kind of try to work through things, potentially fix some of those issues, because obviously they played last weekend, they're in the lower brackets, so they don't play this weekend, and then they will be playing next weekend. So can look forward to that. Dark Wings, I think, has had a really good series. You know, we talked a bit about top lane. I think Castle has done great individually. Dark Wings, I think, has as well. And this is a guy who I think people didn't expect that much from him. But he has been really solid, and he has been able to find a way to make some of these less popular control mages look really, really good. The Veigar was great last game. The Hui has been fantastic this game. And it feels like Call Me didn't have a good answer into it.
Yeah, I hope Dark Wings has a similar trajectory to what we've seen from APA in Tier 1, because Dark Wings feels like this super young new player, but he's 25. He played like 7 years in Tier 2 before actually getting his chance, and then as soon as he does, he performs at a very high level. So hopefully stories like his are like, even if you didn't think this is some incredible standout Tier 2 player that must be thrown in LCS, once you get a few reps, even without the same champion pool as others, he's been very effective.
And I feel like we've seen that from a lot of the players that have come up, right? You know, we're seeing a lot of young players on FlyQuest. We're seeing guys like Kryra, like Kisno, like Sajed, all looking really strong as Ui playing this very aggressively. In comes Impact from behind, and Lions could be in some trouble, but is able to use the magical journey to get back to safety. But Call Me is now cut off from the rest of his team, and Impact is going to be able to tank this one up. Call Me flashes back. Good Bard ult to buy a bit of time. And now Darkwing get caught under the tower by a Kryra ultimate. Nice turnaround there. The resets could be coming through. Do they want to jump in on this? Sajed arrives. They're going to try to chase down Impact, who has no flash. Rahel in position, going to try to look for a turn. The Equalizer comes through, and Castle flashes over. He has the overheat there, trying to knock down Rahel. Doesn't quite have the damage, but they do get a couple kills. Do they have the confidence to go for the Baron? They're going to make the call to try to do it. Call Me is basing. His DP still on cooldown, though, unless the Spectator client is wrong. And Castle may have just gone too far. Castle now is zoned off by himself. He wanted to chase. The rest of his team wanted Baron. And now that miscommunication may really cost them. Call Me is back, but, oh man, Castle chased way too far. The rest of the team wanted to go for the Baron. I feel like they could have tried.
I think they could have tried, but it's also an 18,000 health Baron. Double AD carry takes it very quick. That would have been their window back in the game. So I agree with the call. Just go for it. It felt like a small miracle the way this started. Like, Call Me goes to defend this turret 1v3, and the best Bard ult of the game catches two of the divers, not the turret, which allows the turret to just one-shot Darkwings, and then they have Impact, no flash. Potentially the best play would have been for Castle to not teleport in, because he gets the turret bot lane, and DSG probably still wins the fight. But once Castle's in, he's thinking, we need to hit a home run right now. They get the shutdown and Impact, and could probably have turned for Baron, but that is going to be something for their review. We don't have time to go over that now.
No, we don't at all, but we're back to live, and Impact could be in some trouble. Remember, has no flash. They're not going to fully commit to it, though. Cryra did use the ulti, but clearly they cannot just punch through this Galio. He is very tanky. He has had the Randwinds for a while.
Really love that Randwinds pickup for him. Doesn't over-prioritize the magic resist. Needed a little bit for the early lane against Castle. Now with 2 crit damage dealers, that's the best tank item he can build in the game so far.
And Sentinels, they want to keep accelerating this game, where DSG kind of want to slow it down in a bit, because you really want to get to the IE on both the Tristana as well as the Sivir. And if they can get this next Dragon, get towards IE for both of their carries, that would be huge. But Call Me going to be able to rocket jump to safety, will be pushed back, and it means that tower top should fall. Of course, they're not going to have the IE for this next fight, and that is going to be the soul fight. So this is the one that DSG really have to problem solve for. Can they find a way to make it work here? There will be no flash on Castle, their strongest member, no flash on Call Me either.
Going to be extremely difficult. I think step one is get a lane pushing. I really think Castle needs to be on bot lane, get that pushed in as deep as possible, because you need to have at least one angle to approach the Drake from. They're over-grouping a little bit mid to not get more pushed in, but at the very least, being able to take a little bit of vision in river is a positive play.
Another thing that's really big is Sentinels have TP advantage, but Impact, did he overstep here? The reset on that rocket jump is going to allow him to jump again. The Buster Shot interrupted the ulti. Call Me can't go for more, but he does push Impact back and gets his ult. That's actually huge, because Impact was the TP advantage, where there was no TP for Call Me or Castle. So that is a really big win in the side lane there for DSG, and it gives them a much better shot now with no Galio ult at this next fight.
No Trist ult as well. Probably got a little greedy at the very end of it, but Castle and Cryra doing their best to just hold vision in the river. They know a lot of this game does hinge on their ability to secure this Drake, but they do have first setup, so Sentinels does have to move into them, which can be pretty difficult.
Yeah, they're going to have to wait for Call Me, though, so they can't start a fight just yet. They need to be very, very careful. They are in a 5v4 right now until Call Me arrives, and Call Me might be spotted soon. Sentinels trying to posture aggressively with that extra man. Now Call Me shows Castle on the side is in a lot of trouble. He has no flash from the previous fight, drops the equalizer, but he could be in trouble. Cryra over the wall, catches the ulti under a hell, but it's Castle that's down. The ulti comes through from Lions, but it gets him nothing. Sejed is going to try to flash into the magical journey, but it expires. Sejed is going to fall. Sentinels win the fight. They want more, and they're going to get it. And now Cryra running for the hills. Call Me pushes mid, but it's a 2K gold lead. It is a 1 fight, and it is going to be soul for Sentinels.
Total disaster for DSG, but so much confidence from Hambach, just going straight on to Rumble, who was flashless and separated from the team. Bard ult is just too late, and the portal probably too early. It's a total disaster there as DSG lose 3 and the soul.
That's Mountain Soul. This is going to make things a lot more difficult. That being said, they do have a lot of DPS. They do have that high DPS comp, so it's not doomed. It's not like you have full assassins and you have no follow-up damage, but it's going to make things a lot more difficult, as well as the flat armor and MR increase that is going to really benefit champions like the Galio, who is stacking that. So now you definitely need your Last Whispers. You can see they're going to be building towards that next for Call Me and Sejed, which means IE is going to be 4th or later. And it's a little bit of desperation time for DSG. They're going to overload a side lane and see, hey, can we actually find something here? Does someone step too far forward?
Hoping to get 1 or 2 kills and then maybe be able to sneak Baron. Maybe similar to the way they won the Ivern Nasus game. Don't have quite the same scaling, but this is the state that they're in right now. At least they're trying for creative plays, but Sentinels just needs to make sure their waves are pushed up, make sure they're approaching with vision, And they should be able to close this one out.
I mean, they keep canceling their recalls. They could get spotted in that brush, and that would be a disaster here, because now there's a lot more Sentinel members on that top side.
I mean, can Calmy and Kryra even get a kill?
No, I don't think so. Not with how close the rest of the Sentinels team is. I mean, if
Yeah.
it's clearly just like an extended 2v1, you can, but they are moving out now, and I think they're going to be spotted here pretty soon on that ward if they do walk that way. I love that Hanbok is also grabbing a Randuin's of his own, double AD carry. Obviously, you have the ulti, which is going to be super effective against them, but also he is 2K gold ahead. Another game where he's monstrously ahead, and he has like a 70 CS lead to boot, and they are starting up the Baron now. Huhi just trying to keep them away. It's going to be a slow burn, but once the Varus arrives, it'll be going down a lot more quickly, and it feels like DSG, they're aware, but can they approach?
Yeah, it's so hard for them to approach. Rahel hitting it now. Shreds it almost instantly.
Okay, well, he's going to spot it now, so now they know for sure. They're going to TP the Tristana back out.
I mean, Kryra will just have to blind flash in. If they can get any vision over top,
they're going to delay with the Bard ult. Can Kryra get in and try to steal this away? Calmy's on the side, fighting against Darkwings as well as Huhi. Kryra, does he go? Nice binding comes through. The equalizer's on no one at all from Castle. Hanbok goes forward, but Hanbok's just going to get burst down. He's shut down by Castle. In comes the Galio ultimate, but it's not timed correctly. Castle flashes and Magical Journeys back out to safety. Feels like a bit of a comedy of errors there. As the equalizer hit no one, Hanbok goes in and dies, and at the end of the day, it's DSG staving off the Baron here, but not getting more themselves.
so from the looks of it, DSG was thinking if they equalizer the Nash and Kryra goes in, maybe it's flippable, but then Hanbok flies out as the equalizer goes in, which I think makes it so, because the Baron resets exactly right there. But then he takes so much damage from Castle's Rumble, just sitting on pretty much his flame spitter right there.
Oh, Calmy is going to be caught out. Can he actually survive? He's trying to reset the rocket jump, and he does so onto Huhi, and now the teleports are coming in. Kryra's going to be in behind them. Can they look for more? Kryra wants to find someone. Huhi has to flash, so they have to go very defensive there in retreat. And yeah, that was some risky business around the Baron. I mean, I think the turn could have been okay, but there was 2 members from Sentinel that were up on the top side dealing with Calmy. You know, they're not with you, so if you're trying to turn like that, it's just unlikely to work out. I mean, Hanbok goes over the wall thinking, hey, I have Galio ult, but
yeah,
you know, your Rakan's nowhere near. Your Varus can't hit, so it's not going to work out in that situation. That's a pretty big shutdown being given over. Calmy now has this LDR. You can see that the Executioner's calling the Mortal Reminder has been finished for Sajed, so surely you would think the IEs are coming next.
Yeah, they both have their armor pen items, partially because the Mountain Soul needs to be cut through. I got a weird feeling now. Just with the way that Baron went, with the way the pick happened before the maybe possible 20-minute Baron from DSG, it feels much more winnable now than it did at, say, 10 minutes. But Sentinels could still be one team fight away. They know they're on this power spike. They don't want the 80 carries to get to IE, so they're back at the Baron.
This is scary, though. If you're in the pit against the Equalizer here, Castle is very, very strong. So Jed going to get spotted over the wall, but does have a spell shield. Calmy is pushing mid lane here, so he's going to be trying to continue that. Rahel coming to respawn now, and Calmy's going to have to be careful because he's separated from the team.
Yeah, I don't think Calmy can get through, and Hanbok also doesn't really take damage from the Baron, so they're really just hoping DSG commits in, and then they can get their fight.
Castle is moving over to try to regroup with Calmy, but now potentially Sentinels could engage to the other side. Some poke coming through onto Kryra. The Baron's getting low. There's the equalizer across multiple members, and the ulti from Kryra. It's going to be cleansed off, though, by who he is. Kryra's incredibly low. Lions flashes back, as well as the flash from Sajed, but Sajed falls to Rahel. It's up to Castle and Calmy. They're going to try to get something done here on the side, but they get no kills at all. They lose their bot lane, and it feels like they're about to lose so much more.
Can just go right back onto the Baron. It is a 3v5.
Kryra's in a lot of trouble. He's got a flash, and over on the other side, Calmy's going in. They're going to try to win the fight on the side, and they're going to get Rahel. He burns down. That is a massive shutdown, as Hanbok was trying to go for a kill on one side. Calmy going to get spotted out. Can he make a great escape? He cannot. He falls. But without the Varus, this is so much harder to do. Castle's got to try to stay alive, though. He gets caught on the recall briefly there. Overheats, trying to go in on the Huhi, but surely has no damage to finish him off. And Impact is not going to go down. They're delaying the death. They're just delaying the death.
Yeah, because Elder is going to be up in 34 seconds, and now he's dead for 20 seconds after Elder, and 5 will likely be alive for this Baron. So Sentinels really on top of the death timers, even if the game is crazy. The start of that fight, Huhi did incredible to peel the backside of the fight. Kryra's sticking around for some miracle steal, but it's looking tough. This will be Baron and probably Elder as well. It depends how long it takes Sentinels to reset and go down for the Elder.
Yeah, it's still 30 seconds until Castle respawns here. They're going to be able to have the Baron buff on all 5 for Sentinels, so instant reset here. And are going to be rushing out of base, spending all their gold. There's Randuin's done for Hambach. You can see he's got an elixir in his inventory. He is ready to go, and Rahel working in towards that Jack show, so going to be very tanky once that is completed. Just about delaying for Castle. They are going to have time to get him back here. The TP is going to be up very shortly after the respawn, if not right as he respawns.
Yeah, it's up.
Hambach is going to get stunned, but just no damage there to follow it up.
It's still so hard to kill him. I mean, Hambach is super tanky.
Look at that TP.
Impact is super tanky. They're TPing deep, but they'd have to get onto the carry. So Rahel's no flash. He might be a target if they can find him.
They are split once more. Do they have eyes on Castle? Kryra getting chunked down once again. He's down 2 levels, remember, here, and is not very tanky. Call me and Sajet. It's really all about them and Castle. Castle on the side. Are they going to try to go for it here? In comes the Equalizer, but it's at the same time as the Bard ult. It cancels everything. Sajet is going to be charmed up. He's going to be taunted up. Castle's in trouble.
They still kill Darkwings.
Sajet is gone. They do get Darkwings. Colmey's going to jump in, but he just gets knocked up and he gets knocked down. That Bard ult was playing for the other team. Sentinels crush the fight. We'll see how much more they can get, but the anti-timing there from Lions as it immunes the Equalizer damage, immunes the Sejuani ulti, and Sentinels are marching on the Nexus.
That's probably the game. Just a series of unfortunate events for Lions' Bard this game. He hit one nice one in the top lane, but had several go in the wrong direction. 4 alive, Castle the only defender. This is probably the series, Azael.
This is definitely looking like the series. Impact tanking up the towers. Castle can do nothing. Sentinels were pushed, but they did not break. They take down DSG. They qualify for the America's Cup, and they continue their march towards first stand.